Okay. Let's get involved in politics. Let's go. Um, so what did you want to start with?
Yeah,
The
what
child
I
custody thing?
yeah what I wanted to start in was that something I hear male feminists claim sometimes that this is like a patriarchal norm that like females are supposed to take care of children, and this is like patriarchy's fault that the females get custody. But the thing is, like before, when we had real patriarchy, this wasn't the case. It was males getting the custody after divorce, and then it was changed later because of feminism.
Yeah. Well, I mean that's a complicated thing because you have to have infrastructure in place. First of all, you have to have the infrastructure in place for women to get exclusive custody of children. You have to have a massive, you could call it like an identity state where like a man can't just impregnate a woman and run away, and his identity is going to follow him all around the world. So you have to be able to sort of like tether your identity to the economic system, and make it kind of inescapable, and that way you can put men on the hook. That's like a prerequisite for giving women custody, because if you didn't have a system like that, let's say it's like, I don't know, 1700, and you impregnate a woman, you could just, I don't know, you could just skip town, right, and you're off the hook for the child. So yeah, under like a patriarchal system, what you end up having is, the like men have all of the rights, and they get all the responsibilities tethered to it. So like, you just end up in a situation where, it's kind of like like honor, I guess, or like social reputation or whatever.
I mean,
Or I don't know.
it's not just that. It's that males naturally, for the most part, want to support their children. Like this is an instinct humans have. This is not just about like honor or whatever. Like people care about their children, including males, for the most part. So in a
Yeah, and I
patriarchal system, like males will naturally care about their children. Like sure, some might like run away or whatever, but this will not be the norm at all.
well, yeah, and men. I mean, I can't speak for all men, but typically, like, if you look at the parts of the manosphere that are oriented around, like maybe like MGTOW or something like that, where they're like marriage and child rearing adjacent. They're not just purely black pilled. What they'll say is that, the men look at their children as like a legacy or like an investment, and so the men are like thinking about issues way further into the future. Like they're thinking about mortality, they're thinking about passing on their genes, passing on their wealth, and, men are much more. And I think they look at the child like, okay, I'm going to get old, I'm going to die, and what's going to be left when I'm dead. And I think men think about it that way. I don't know what women think. I have no idea what goes through a woman's head with respect to that. But like, I know for me particularly, that's the way I look at like what's kind of missing from my life is, okay, well, what's the point of anything I'm doing right now if I'm just going to die one day and there's nothing left? Like, not that I should, end my life now, but it kind of makes my life meaningless. And I think for men, having children makes their life much more meaningful. But
I
I'll
mean, I
pass it
will
back to you.
argue that without children, your life is objectively kind of meaningless. It's hard to like give a real meaning for your life if you don't reproduce. It's arguably a wasted life in that case. So
Yeah, and that's
absolute. And the thing with women, I'm not sure exactly what they think, but I think a lot of women will just push down morality upon the children. Like, for example, if you date your mother, be like, oh, you shouldn't like have sex with her. This is like immoral or whatever. So like, so if you have a mother and you meet someone, you don't say you're going to like fuck her. You say like something else, and you don't tell her that you had sex. You may tell her later if you got pregnant, maybe, but with like your mother, you don't disclose that stuff because she's like a lot of women are into morality bullshit. So this is a big problem with that women have, is that they will like regurgitate whatever morality other like told them from the state or whatever. So like even if the woman is like raising the child, is kind of raised by the state and system anyway, and the state will not prepare males for to do well in the real world. And with fathers is this hit or miss, like some are good, some are bad, and some are between, some are like absent doing nothing, like so. But it can also be like a hopelessly, maybe so fathers are feeling hopeless about the situation, so they don't put effort into like raising their children because it's not really their children anyway. So this might be a factor in like males giving up too because they don't want to bother with all the bullshit, so they just leave them, and then they get blamed
Yeah,
for it.
well, reproduction tends to get left completely out of the conversation. Like if you look at any like gender dynamics or any political social conversation around these topics, they almost completely leave meaning out of the discussion. And even a guy like Jordan Peterson, whose entire existence is predicated on meaning, he has this like word salad approach to meaning. Like if you look at any of his stuff about meaning, it
Yes.
doesn't it doesn't go straight to the root of the matter, which is your life is meaningless because you don't have children. Like he doesn't need to write any of his books or give any of his lectures. He needs to just say, look, there's a root to this problem. It's that men don't have that connection to their future, their legacy, their family. They don't have custody. They don't have
Yeah,
power, political power.
yeah, but the
That's what's
thing is
wrong.
that he cannot say that, and he really pussyfoots around it at best. Like what he says is that he mentioned all this other thing, like this maps of meaning bullshit, or what it was say is that you should clean the room. He does not say that you should like invest into your child or like you have a family. And a big reason for that is that Peterson is into like extreme individualism, and he does not like promote because if he say that you should like have a children, then a lot of males cannot do that because a lot of his males are losers or cancer children and are rejected. And what Peterson teaches these people is that they should accept their lot in life, accept being losers in society, and find some cope. And this is what Peterson is
Yeah,
doing. He's providing cope for males that is total nonsense to pacify them. This is essentially what he's doing. Like there's no sign of Peterson having like good intention in any way.
yeah, but I mean, his copes are such dog shit, though. I mean, I don't understand why anybody like what is he? Are you supposed to like convert to his like pseudo right wing religion and become a monk? I don't even fucking understand like what his copes are just the shittiest fucking copes ever. Like I don't understand why he's popular. I guess is what I'm saying. Like, do you have any insight into his popularity at all?
Uh, what I can say is that the big reason for his popularity is very simple. It's because a lot of media promoted him. So you can ask yourself why was he promoted? It's because he's not a threat to the establishment at all. So this is why he got promoted. Like there is a reason why people like me kind of got like shut down. Like sure the transmaxxing thing got popular, but not by other writings. There is a reason for that. It's because like I offer the real deal and people don't want to spread that. People don't.
Yeah, I mean, they could quarantine you at any time if they wanted to. I mean, it's the mainstream platforms are totally controlled. So if they want to say, okay, you can't like, what they do is they identity ban. Like they did that with who was the guy that's yay Kanye. They did that with Kanye. They told Twitch streamers that if they platformed Kanye, like if you know, like think about that. Like Kanye is this massive worldwide superstar and just some little like shit nobody Twitch streamer. They said if you have Kanye on your stream, you'll get permanently banned. You'll get instantly permanently banned. So it's easy to like tether identity. It's kind of like what I was saying at the beginning about identity.
Yeah, but
They can just tether your identity in, and then that's how they achieve social control in the modern world.
yeah, the issue here
Like,
is that this were against people who have like a cult following that like Andrew Tate for example, they can like just ban him and like remove his clips or whatever. Uh, what I did is that I didn't really tie my political stuff to my identity. Instead what I did is that I used the manifesto strategy because like anyone can like ban me whatever, but if I have something in writing and I put it together and I publish this document in like 7 different ways, and upload it to like different places on the internet, people can never get rid of that later. So once something like that spreads, it's much harder to combat. But the issue then
I
is,
see.
but the issue then is that you don't really get the same cult following because you don't have this personality cult behind you. So it's harder for like me to be personally successful with a strategy, but it is censorship resistant. So people will never be able to shut down transmaxing, for example, because I intentionally made it impossible. Like even if this Discord server is banned, like we cannot make a new one. Like you cannot like get rid of the transmaxing manifest anymore because now it's like kind of famous. And so and we can just re-upload it to any place, and we are like many people to. So even if I disappear, someone else can still spread it.
Yeah, how did you learn about censorship resistance? Was there like an intellectual uh, background behind it, like a book, or did it just like come intuitively?
From me it came intuitively that I was like paranoid what will I do in the case I was banned. I was like thinking about it, and I realized that I needed to some way to easily spread my idea that I can like patch it and be spread. So I realized that I need to put it into like writing and use a document. And this started with the Vintology Bible a few years ago. And at first it wasn't like that great of a document, I think, but then eventually I started like improving it. And then later I was like wondering because I was thinking about eugenics and like how should you do that? What should you do with the excess male population? And this is how I came up with transmaxing because I like wanted to have like a solution for that. This was the first thing that came to mind, or one of the things that came to mind, that maybe like people can transition to female, then you can stabilize society by doing eugenics. But this is the origin of the idea. So what you have to realize here is that the purpose here is not really to like deal with the current incel population. It's to in the future, this for the original idea that how do you like manage people while still doing that eugenics idea. And I'm not sure like if this is like the right approach right now, but this was like the idea I had then. So, but
So it that's the type. The thing is that the type of thinking that you're doing, I'm not sure how familiar you are with the NGO system, but like this type of approach is exactly the type of things. Like if I couldn't say a specific NGO because I haven't worked in the NGO system, I was just adjacent to it. But like that's the kind of stuff they would talk about. Like the way that you talk is the way they would talk at, for example, I don't know, like if there's an NGO tethered to the UN or Davos or World Economic Forum, World Economic Forum is very transhumanist, and everybody says that transmaxing is transhumanism, and all these crazy transhumanists out there. So I'm not necessarily saying they're going to accept it, but there is a greater cultural clash where you've had this feminist system that's been like snowballing since, I don't know, like starting in the late 1800s in the United States, first wave feminism, all the way up to whatever we're on the fourth wave of feminism or whatever. Feminism has kind of had its way, right? But there is something inherently unsustainable with that approach, and there's a direct conflict between um, people call them turfs, but they're just feminists, right?
yeah,
Feminists do not like the idea of any um, I hate the term AMAB, but let's start with that term. I don't. Let's
born
say
male
AMAB.
can
They don't
do,
like AMABs
yeah, born male.
becoming transitioning. They do not like AMABs transitioning. They really don't like it. Women generally don't like it. They're like, for the most part, like, because if you think about it, they have women have a powerful, they've got like their sexuality, but then they've also got feminism, which we were talking about at the beginning. And like you're saying, they have feminism, and maybe they don't even want child custody. I mean, that's a weird. When you brought that up, that kind of triggered my mind because I was like, why do women even want custody? Is that just part of their overall power trip? Like, oh, this is it's just all part of the union, right? It's just like, okay, well, more power for me, that's fine. They don't necessarily give a shit about child custody per se,
I
but it's like there's
mean,
this big package of power that they get, you
I
know?
mean, they do seem to want custody over children, and this is kind of weird too. The thing with women is that, I see it all the time, is that women have abortion all the time. They like use birth control, but once they have the children, they don't want to like let it away. So there are studies on this, like people who wanted to have abortion, and then when they got denied abortion, this is only like 90% who give it up for adoption, and the other 91% kept it. So they really are like attached to the children. They want to like have them as property. They want to like control the offspring. So they rather kill the child than to like have it go away from them. This is how women are. They are like maybe control freaks. Is the like least charitable interpretation of their behavior. Like they want to control the children. They don't want other people to like have decide over them. So there seems to be something like that. They don't want them to slip away from them. They'd rather kill them than to lose them. This is like kind of how they think.
Okay. And you were saying that women get their morality from the state?
It's not necessarily from the state per se. Like because the state in Western countries is kind of weak. Like there are all these other powers, like media powers, like education institutions. So like the power system, which is decentralized, is influence the women, which in turn like raise the children, so they are like indirectly raised by the system. But it's not just the state; it's the combination of like government and media and like all these institutions.
Yeah. Are you familiar with Mencius Moldbug?
I heard a little bit about him. I wasn't impressed, so I didn't listen much to him. But I'm
Okay, okay,
familiar.
yeah. But yeah, he would call that the cathedral.
Yeah,
Like it's sort of
yeah.
the
This is
cultural overlap.
yeah.
Yeah.
The thing is that this is not just one like a unified power structure, because if it was like that, we wouldn't be able to do what we're doing today. Like the system is a bit fragile, and they are not really that united too. Like there is like this feminist thing which is supported by both Republicans and Democrats. This is like broad support, but they don't really get along well. Like there is all these constant power struggles all the time in the system. There is not just one force. There is all these different forces that have competing interests, which is kind of a good thing and a bad thing. This is a good thing in the sense that if you don't want the system to succeed, it's a good thing because it is unstable. So it is not too difficult to just like defeat it. Like people think that it is like this big thing that you cannot like win over, but you can very easily like defeat this feminist system if you really put effort into it.
Yeah. Well, okay, there's a question. Why isn't there more of an effort to like overturn feminism and return to like some kind of sanity or stability, or like what factors do you think play into that? Where that kind of apathy?
I mean, I think the biggest factor is that the feminist has like convinced a very large part of the population to go along with it. The people believe in feminism, like even males. The difference is that people go like different in how far they believe in feminism. So they may, for example, believe in like females should have the right to vote, like most females or all females. They might believe that like females should be able to decide over their own body. They should like maybe like they might not agree with abortion, but at least they believe that females should be able to use birth control to not have children. So and you also have all these liberal types, so like even if they don't specifically support feminists, they at least believe in the right to choose and do what you want with your body and not be forced to have children, not be forced to like defend your country. So you have the liberal faction and then you have the feminist faction, which kind of overlaps with each other. And you don't really have, like in the United States you have all this freedom culture, and this really works against men, by the way, this freedom culture, because then you cannot put like legislation to like force women to do what's needed for society. You cannot do that if you have like a constitution and stuff. Then you need to like what you can do maybe do tax breaks and all that nonsense, which doesn't even work to solve anything.
Okay, so the Malthusians, I think they were right in principle, and they got the timing wrong. So to take your perspective on feminism, most people would say, okay, well, you have these women in charge, and they're not making the best decisions, you know, and so like you could argue that specifically like the U.S. American society is weakened. It's like had this long march since the late 1800s to the present. It's had this long feminist march, and they've got everyone convinced. And yet, the United States, it didn't even come into its own as a hegemonic power until after World War II. And feminism predated that by like, what is that, 70 years, something like that. So how do you resolve this sort of like long march of feminism, this over a century long march, with like, I guess, the position of the United States, like, geopolitically?
I mean, I think the biggest issue right now is that we don't have like a good like a counter ideology because everything presented to people is feminist. Like you have like we have conservative feminists on the Republican side. It is like bad women from sport and trans females from sport because always so unfair to have like cis females lose in some competition. And then you have like on the left side you have like toxic masculinity bullshit and like it is disproven, like they started showing that masculine men are happier because of course they are. So it's not like so you need to be like masculine as a male to compete. You cannot like to be feminine. This is also an issue like with some people who transition and want to like stay male forever. They want to like say take estrogen and still present male. This is a very wide idea for that reason because if you are feminine as a male you will be rejected by everyone pretty much because women don't find it attractive and like gay males don't want it either. So you are like a nobody's land if you are like a feminine male. So like you need to either like go full transmaxxing and like present feminine. Like even if you don't pass, you're still into like a social transition anyway, or you shouldn't start hormones in the first place. Like in the before I was maybe like more. I didn't have an opinion regarding like long boy modding, but later I realized that you need, if you transition, you need to present as a female. You can, even if you cannot, but you still need to socially transition and like go full on and like sure. And if you don't want that to happen, you shouldn't take female hormones because you shouldn't take female hormones if you tend to present male. This is a super bad idea. And you also shouldn't be feminine. You shouldn't like listen to people telling you to like wear dress or whatever and still be male. This is also a very bad idea. Like you will no female will respect it if you are feminine. That it will like very much turn them off because
I mean, this is a massive can of worms, though, because like because while you were talking, I was thinking like there has to be like this like this like place in society. You're saying you have these. Let's just dig into the idea of passability, right? If you wanted to take transmaxing, if you wanted to hit the pedal to the metal and really amp it up, you would have to carve out a place in society for lots of not just feminine men who want to transition, but like all sorts of different categories of men, passing, non-passing, feminine, non-feminine, gay, straight, everything. You would need to like figure out a way. If you wanted to make this into like a counter ideology to feminism, you would really have to carve out a way to create a place for those people in society. Because it seems to me like right now, within the feminist framework, what you end up with, and I've seen this in trans women who have fully transitioned and lived full time, they cannot get out of the feminist framework psychologically, mentally. They're still stuck in feminism, and they'll say, "Oh, you need to read this feminist book on some trans topic," and I'm like, "No, the feminists fucking hate you, right? Like they think of you as a man, like essentially,
yeah,
like you have the soul of a man, no matter what."
actually I have a theory regarding trans females and feminists. My theory is that there are three types of cis female feminist reaction regarding it. The first one is that, oh fuck, I hate these people, I want them to go away, I don't want to have anything to do with them. And these are like the tough, these are the like, tend to be kind of stupid, not really that, what is it, the one who wrote the Prince book, Machiavellianism. They are not really like Machiavellian, so they are not, they are like openly hostile to trans females. And then we have the speaker group, which is I think most feminists, and they view them as useful idiots for their ideology. So they realize, oh yeah, we can push trans females to push for feminists, and then we can use them. The ones they are no longer useful, they are like discarded. But they just don't think this is the right time for that yet. They wait for a better opportunity to throw them under the bus. And I think this is like most feminists don't really like this trans idea, but I think that you can ally with them because a lot of trans feminists believe in feminists too. They are like useful idiots for the feminists, and then when they are no longer needed, they are good like thrown out. Or like I see this happen in Europe right now, that left-wing government throw trans females under the bus. They like remove access to healthcare or whatever without warning, because they like in Sweden in the government media they did an anti-trans documentary. So we see all this stuff popping up all over the place. And what trans people don't realize is that a lot of these people are just feminists who are just open out about being transphobic to other people. They just didn't disclose it, but like before they pretended to go along with it because they were like politically useful. Because a lot of these left-wing types just want to deconstruct gender, so they want to use trans female for that deconstruction. So they don't really care about like defending trans people, they just want to abolish. So this is why they push for self-ID and like you are a woman if you identify as a woman. This is like counterproductive for trans females obviously, because then it doesn't really mean anything. So this is also why I pushed back against it in the transmaxxing manifesto, because I saw the writing on the wall when it comes to that. But this is a bit sad though, that so many like trans women are like gullible enough to buy into this bullshit. They don't realize that they are like taking advantage of. And the reason for that is that if you are marginalized in society, it will be very easy for people who have like an agenda to just use you for their gain, because you will be desperate for anyone who will validate you. So when someone like pretends to like reach out the norm to you and oh I will like take care of you, join this feminist movement, they join this feminist movement because they don't realize that they are being like used. Because the right hates them, and then they have the left pretending to care about them. So of course they're going to go for the left-wing feminist bullshit, because these are the people who pretend to care about them. But of course, as we see over and over again, like we see this feminist type throw trans females under the bus all the time, and this happens like they are like surprised every time it happens. This is just because feminists are getting so powerful, they think that they no longer need trans females anymore, and this is why the tough thing is never goes away, because it is like let's say you're fighting a war, and then we have all the civilians, and all the time civilians probably grab a rifle and try to kill you all the time. This happens all the time for the civilians in that area. Maybe it's the case that all the civilians are against you. They just don't want to take up weapons just yet. They wait for the opportunity, and then they take up the weapons and fight against you. But they are all against you. They are just not open about it, because if they are open about it, they will face backlash. So,
Yeah, I thought J.K. Rowling was going to get canceled. Did you think that, or did you think she was bulletproof?
I wasn't sure, but I got the impression that she was on the safe side, like nobody was going against her really. Like nothing happens to her, like he doesn't even get banned from Twitter or anything. This is because feminists is so powerful that they're not even willing to like go against the turf really. Like the thing is, like mainstream feminists is gender critical, like left wing stuff is gender critical. They don't want to accept like gender as a real thing. They say this is like a social contract, this is like meaningless thing. So this is also a thing they don't like about transsexual, is that transsexual embrace the femininity. They embrace feminine roles, and they hate it about trans females the most, I think. This is the main like issue they have about them. They don't like that trans women often want to please males or be attractive. They don't like that trans women want to be feminine. They hate them for that.
Yeah. Well, I was gonna say on that, on the whole thing about like gender being a social construct, the problem that you run into, there's like a reality that you run into is that okay, so you can deconstruct gender and you can say, oh, men can wear skirts and makeup and cry and blah blah blah
Yeah,
because
they
there's no gender,
can't.
and women can be masculine. But like it destroys like the reproductive, especially for men. Like men don't buy into it at all because they know that, like you were saying earlier, they know if they do anything effeminate, like it's going to be revolting to women. So like men are just living in a reality where they're like, okay, like we'll let you deconstruct gender and you can be a tomboy or a lesbian. You can do whatever you want, but just like leave us the fuck out of it because like between men, it's like a severe, intense, lifelong competition. There's like I, I can go into like the math of like how the supply demand works in the sexual marketplace. We don't need to go into it now, but like it's really fucked. And so like men are in this intense competition for youthful, fertile, sexually available women. And so like you're never going to convince men in that position, which is going to be the vast majority. You're not going to convince them to that gender is a social construct, that gender is just some kind of a performance. That whole attitude is just a convenient belief that feminists can hold because they're not like held to any like reality with it. But yeah,
Yeah, but
did you have a third category? You said there was, you
the,
went through
the,
two. You said the
there
turfs
is
are
a third
anti-trans, and then you said
category which generally believes in like trans stuff because they bought into the ideology of transgenderism, like the radius women too. I'm not sure how common it is, but they're all true believers in any kind of nonsense. So of course they exist, but I don't think they are very common. Anyway, what I was going to say is that feminists don't want female to held up to standards, and this is why they don't like, they call themselves gender critical, because they don't want to face like standards for behavior as women. They want to be able to behave as badly as they want. They don't want to be responsible to do anything for society. So this is why they attack gender roles, because this is like a responsibility thing. You need to have that for society to be functional. We need people to take responsibility. You need to have children, women have children, raise them, and males too. Like you might actually want males to raise children more than women. But this is a different thing. You need like children for society. You need to have people fighting wars. And you need
yeah.
that has to be done. So you need to have gender roles for that. This is not.
That's kind of like a MGTOW MRA kind of position that I mean they would say that, oh, there's this guy, he's it would be easy to pigeonhole you into a position like you're tethered to the manosphere somehow, like like a TFM always says take women's rights away, and that kind of narrative was running through the right wing. And I want to say a couple years ago, 2-3 years ago, like a sort of anti-feminist, before there was that big anti-SJW purge on YouTube. I don't know. Do you know anything about how like ContraPoints made her whole career by being against the anti-SJWs, and then she got famous for doing that, and then YouTube kicked off all the anti-SJW right wingers, and then ContraPoints like lost her purpose in life, and she stopped uploading too. Like, but
Yeah.
yeah, there was sort of this reactionary thing. But anyway,
Yeah, the thing with a lot of these anti-SJW people is that they didn't really want to get real with the controversial stuff. This is part of why they lost, I believe. Like even TFM is kind of like I heard them say that society will go through cycles where it will be people will get it good, and then people will make like good times create weak men, and then society collapses. Like this doesn't happen if you have authoritarianism. But because he doesn't want to take the authority pill, he isn't willing to see that this like degradation of society doesn't happen if you have authoritarian governance. It only happens in
yeah,
democracies.
He's in like direct conflict with authoritarians, and he's got issues surrounding that. And the thing is, he got permabanned because he got lumped in with, let's just say, like right wing authoritarians of a certain type,
You mean
and he got like
Nazis?
lumped in with them, and he doesn't like to be associated with the authoritarians. He's trying to differentiate himself in the marketplace,
Yeah,
but
but the thing is, it doesn't work. You need to have authoritarianism for society to be strong and functional. This is also why, for example, this is very openly called as authoritarian because it is like I'm not hiding it. I'm proud of it because it's a good
wait,
thing.
say that again. Did you say the Politburo is authoritarian?
Yeah, for the server, like it's openly authoritarian, like it's called a Politburo for a reason. I want to like brag about how authoritarian the server is, how little power people outside the Politburo has.
Okay, that's actually really interesting. Yeah, you're just like, you came out of the closet as an authoritarian. You're like out of the closet.
I mean, I've never been inside the closet with regard to that, I think.
You're trans authoritarian. No, you were never. You're cis authoritarian. You were born authoritarian.
Yeah, the thing is,
Anyway.
actually, to be honest with you, I wasn't like authoritarian all the time. Like for a very long time, I was like thinking of maybe we can like have like a liberal system, can we in some way like restrict the government. And I was coming up with all the systems, like, and I realized that for one you need to like restrict the power of the politicians, or then you need to have like a Supreme Court. And then you cannot like all of the politicians to like replace the Supreme Court, so you need to have the Supreme Court like appoint their own successors. And then the Supreme Court has to always be able to overrule the politicians. And what did I end up with? I ended up with
Yep.
authoritarianism.
Can I also give my grain of salt?
Sure.
So I would say the myth of the Western countries is emancipation, and I think this anti-patriarchy thing from the feminists is is just a continuation of that thought, and this worldview of them, and I don't know how this can be reversed or transformed to again authoritarian regime in how we can yes reform or transition the West as a whole, because this myth is so deeply ingrained. Yes, starting with Christianity. So
Yeah, what I can say
yeah,
is that what will always happen is eventually authoritarians will be the prevailing system. This is a convergence of society. So you always end up with eventually one power will dominate society. And right now the left is kind of winning and has been winning, so they are like pushing for like authoritarian governance and against the right, and they are winning because of that, because they are willing to like influence and use the power to their advantage. So because of that, you will see the right will be forced to adopt similar strategies to be defeated in the United States at least. So you have this,
Yeah.
and you also see saw the same in
yes.
Ukraine. For example, that before the war, Ukraine wasn't that authoritarian. It was like this democratic society, and now after the war, you have like Ukraine doing more and more laws to restrict the power of the press and like ban political parties and all that stuff. So Ukraine is embracing authoritarianism now because they got invaded, so they couldn't like afford to have these democratic freedoms anymore. So the moment you face competition, you either embrace authoritarianism or you just give up and like get defeated. And a lot of people will embrace it, like even like Ukraine did it. So I do see Republicans and other right wingers, real right wingers, to say also embracing authoritarianism eventually because they realize the obvious, like they don't want to lose.
You'll
Yeah, but
probably see,
um,
if you see this hard left wing authoritarianism in the United States, it's going to start out as like a sort of, I mean, it's been, like liberal the skin suit that it wears. I say this all the time. This is like my brand. It's not actual liberalism. Like the people behind backing Joe Biden, they're not liberals. They wear the skin suit of liberalism. That's my trademark right there. They are skin suit liberals. They're not actual liberals. They're authoritarians that are that are like dog whistling to liberals. But when they have like total absolute power, you're going to see them becoming like everything you're suggesting, right? You're saying, you've got to take women's rights away, and you've got to get the birth rate up, and you've got to beat the war drum. You're going to see them pivot so fast once they have absolute power, because they're going to realize that in order to maintain their power, that they have to be nationalistic or at least like military globalistic. They have to be militaristic. Let's put it that way. Yeah, they're going to realize that they have to be militaristic. They're going to realize that they can't just simp forever, and that they can't run their empire off the backs of immigrants. It's not going to work forever. So either they make that sort of like quote unquote right-wing authoritarian pivot. Either they do that, or some competing power will eventually come up. Is that your take?
Yeah, of course, this is what will happen. And what I will say about that, the liberal thing, is that like a lot of people on the left do to some extent believe in liberalism, so they might want to have like gay marriage, or they want to allow people to transition, and they want to be like pro-immigrant, and so they often believe in this liberal stuff. But the thing with that liberalism is that it is selective liberalism. So you are liberal about certain things, but then they are super illiberal when it comes to other stuff, like vaccines, for example. Like we saw that a lot of the time, where they push really hard to force people to get vaccinated, and people get shocked about it. But I saw it coming a mile away, because this is like the nature of the left.
And they're against free speech as well.
Yes.
So I think I see the shift to the authoritarianism, but not because of the Ukrainian war, but because the justification is we have global crises, and those global crises can only be met with authoritarian measures, like, for example, global warming. If it is right or not, it's not important. It has to be competed on a global level, and so we need institutions. And I think those institutions are getting put in place. And the same is with like viruses that also do global epidemics, and that's also a justification to form institutions that
but I think
are transnational.
Yeah, but I think you might be missing here is that it is not enough to just put up some institution like United Nations or NATO, because then one country can just veto everything and you cannot get anything done. So you need to use your military for that. So with let's say CO2 emission is a real problem. If that is the case, you need to like invade other countries and force them to like follow strict emission rules.
Yes.
Like there's no other way around it. And the ironic thing is I never hear anyone on the left point that out. Like they say this global warming is this big problem, but they don't want to do what is needed to solve it, which is
but you can also apply financial pressure, and we see already in China they also do measures against global warming, even them. And the thing that I wanted to point out, I think the people are they think themselves that it is necessary that there has to be a force because of those problems. We have to take ourselves back, our democratic kind of thinking to overcome those problems. So I think yes.
On the whole global warming thing, who was the who's the guy that it's not Rock? Is it David Rockefeller? No. David, I forget the guy's name. It's one of those Illuminati guys I'll think of his name in a second. But they were writing books. They were writing books in like the 1930s and 40s, saying like we need a new world religion. We need to come up with a religion that unifies everybody. And they use the climate thing. It's just like it's using people's like altruistic and collectivistic. Like if there's an emergency,
Yes, yes,
and
yes.
people aren't. It's altruism is not the word, but when there's an emergency, human beings will jump in and help each other out, right? So like if there's like a hurricane in the southern United States, like millions and millions of dollars of voluntary aid will come in. Like people will just send, thousands of dollars out of their own personal savings to help like disaster victims. So there is this sort of like collective well-being that humans
Yes.
have, and they're taking that instinct. They say, oh, we're in a climate crisis, and so they take that instinct for everybody to like be a good person and be a good citizen and help people out when they're down on their luck, and they really like play jujitsu with that. And I think it's the Rockefeller Foundation, but I think they have been running this play for a long fucking time. If you just have any common sense, like the globe getting warmer would actually be good, because like if it's warmer, then you're going to have more like agricultural areas. Like all of the cold land is going to warm up, and like warming would you would actually get like a bigger human population if the earth got warmer. Like it would be like bullish for the population. So they keep like framing it as some kind of a disaster, but if you just think about it for 2 seconds, like no, it's not going to be a disaster. It's going to be great. Like warming is
Yeah,
a good thing.
every
You can't
crisis
really.
is a is a potential to transform or to do things.
Yeah,
Sorry,
it's an opportunity.
an
Yeah,
opportunity. Yes, yes.
but okay, I had a couple issues. I wanted to circle back to some of the things we were saying. So we were talking about copes earlier, and the Jordan Peterson thing, and like Jordan Peterson is full of these terrible copes, because like there's sort of like this horseshoe where like I personally think, and because I kind of lean toward individualism. Like I get everything you're saying logically about politics, and like I can follow your logic and agree with everything you're saying and say yeah, like you've dotted all your T's and crossed all your I's. But like for me personally, like a good cope, like this is why I hate Jordan Peterson, because a good cope is like playing video games and like having sex. And like the thing about transmaxing that I see is like, okay, well, you really should be pushing like young trans women into like sex work, and like there should just be, you should just like legalize sex work, have it everywhere, and people should just be like having a lot of sex and playing a lot of video games. And I think your idea of a good cope is probably closer to Jordan Peterson in the sense that like you think that there shouldn't be any copes. Like if Jordan Peterson just like went one more step forward, he would like be in your camp, which is that you should be like, maybe I should ask you a question. Do you think that all of the copes should be like rug pulled? Like do you think the authoritarian government should take away video games and take away porn and like ban prostitution and like get people back onto like a sort of militaristic nationalistic type of path, like maybe like a traditional
Actually, I
path?
have a good answer here, and what I believe is that when you're in competition with other societies, your focus has to be competing and out-competing these other powers. Once you have already grip on the entire planet, then you can become liberal in the sense that you can give people back freedoms and stuff. But only once you have like defeated these competing powers. So it's not like you do. Of course, you want people to have freedoms and stuff to live good lives, but first you need to make sure you gain power. Because what is the value in like let's say you create this nice liberal society and then in 10 years you get like invaded with nuclear weapons and stuff? Then what was the point? You had like nice for 10 years and then you get crushed utterly, and like when everyone died pretty much, and the few survivors get raped or like sent to slavery or used for medical experiments or whatever. Like this is
Well, you know who survives. Do you know who survives?
isn't it usually women in these cases?
It's women who are below the age of 35. They survive at the highest rate by a factor of like between 10 and 20 to 1 to the rest of the population. Old people die, children die, women who can kind of fend for themselves and are of reproductive age. So if you're like a woman from the age of like 12 to 30, something like that, you have like the best chance because they can just go to the invading army. They're not going to get shot. They can just surrender to the invading army and get taken as war brides, and that's historically like pretty much what happened throughout all of human history. That's why, like let's say when the mid-century Germans invaded France, the women were like, "Hey, they're a soldier." Like, that's just an instinct they have, like to just flip sides.
Yeah, I was
So
going to say that if you're too young of a child, this is actually a disadvantage because technically, like some male want a child in the future, but most males are not pedophiles. So unless you have like some pedophiles who want them, which are like a minority, if you are like talking about real pedophilia, you're not going to get so many people who want these 8-year-old females or whatever. So this is like. So this is kind of like a moral dilemma here because the only one who want these young children are the pedophiles and nobody else want to bother taking care of them. So what are you going to do? This, I'm not going to say anything more, but this is something to think
yeah,
about.
yeah. Have you? Yeah, that was one of the things I was going to say. Is there's been a recent trend of, I don't know if you know about Mr. Girl. Have you ever heard about Mr. Girl, the
I,
YouTuber?
I heard about him, but I didn't bother like looking up him much.
Yeah, he got kind of like railroaded into like he got branded as like a pedo raper kind of guy, and he was doing a review of the Cuties movie that they had on Netflix, and he was just saying, what those girls are doing in the movie is like sexually titillating, and they were like, oh my god, this guy's a pedo, like because he just admitted that it was sexually titillating. It's like, yeah, the movie was designed to do that, to make the audience feel uncomfortable on purpose. It was like, hey there, you think you're not a pedophile? Well, check this out. It was designed to be provocative in that way, and that's why it was so controversial. And so he gave a review that was not explicitly anti-cuties, and so then he got branded a pedo, and then he eventually got permabanned off YouTube for nothing. Like, they just like went back to his channel. But so you have to be very careful with, like, I tend to stay away from that's become a really popular thing, like pedo hunting and stuff like that. So that's
Yeah,
another disadvantage of being a man. But I guess trans women, if they're not passable, like if they get seen as male, they can end up worse too. So like they have to be
yeah.
careful too.
I have seen this many times before, and I should say it again, is that if you don't pass, you will be subjected to the male standard when it comes to behavior. So people will be much harder on you. So if you like are too feminine, like you will be shit on by like feminist type. You are like characterizing womanhood if you are like overly feminine, like Dylan Mulvaney, for example. And if you're too masculine, you will say, oh, just another guy in the dress with the fetish. So it doesn't matter, like either you're too feminine or too masculine. Either way, people will hate you for it. And
Okay, wait. You're saying that if somebody is effeminate, but they're still read as male,
yeah,
like
it's not
they.
accepted. It's not accepted to be too girly if you're like known to be like born male because you're like characterizing womanhood or whatever. Like people don't want that. Like even if it is your natural behavior, like it doesn't matter. So you're not allowed to be too feminine as a trans female if you don't pass.
Wait. Medbird is saying Mr. Girl was not permabanned. Well, he was 2 months ago. I don't know if he is now. I don't know if they revoked it, but I saw an
Yeah,
interview where he said they went back and retroactively put a strike on his video, and he got banned.
So
So
the last thing I know is that he got unbanned, and then he was connecting with Destiny, and he spent a lot of time in the circle of Destiny until he attacked Destiny that he is abusive to his the people surrounding him, and since then there's some feud going on, and I think
But I couldn't find Mr. Girl's channel. I thought he was permit. He doesn't have a channel.
okay, maybe he got again banned. I have to look.
Well, I mean, if you wanna link his channel in VC text and show me his channel,
Yeah,
I
okay.
couldn't find it.
Okay.
But anyway, that the point is that yeah, I guess that's why what you were saying is that trans women, the reason why they need to transition so early in life is I guess maybe we could like the PQ, the pass question, right? And it's funny if you look at what's the fucking word? What's the fucking term for analyzing language? Semiotics, I think. If you look at the semiotics of the word pass, like women get a pass in life, and so if you are passing as female, like you get a pass in life. Like that term pass, right? Like because you were saying just a few seconds ago that you'll be held to like a male behavioral standard if you don't pass as female. I'm just trying to like wrap my mind around what you were saying. Like I'm trying to get your position correct because I don't understand it.
Yeah,
Like
if you're read as male, you will be subjected to the male standard. So, for example, if you do like anything viewed as morally wrong, or even for being too feminine, like Dylan Mulvaney, people will criticize you for it. They will say that you're like either characterizing womanhood or you're like a male in a dress, like totally a woman because you don't behave feminine enough.
yeah, and that could put you in a really shitty situation in life where I guess what a trans woman in that position would have to do is they would have to like try to find a situation where they're surrounded by people who I guess understand that they're not passing but still gender them as female. I'm trying to figure out like because it seems like you could add a passage to transmaxxing for people who know that they're not going to be passable and like okay, you could still transmax under the following circumstances, but maybe not. I don't like it's because I guess that's the PQ. The passing question is like,
Yeah,
should they like? Do you think that's a settled issue? Do you think the PQ is a settled
I do
issue,
not.
or do you think it's up for debate?
It's very much up for debate, but I can say is that I will not do it myself. And you have to consider that I have gender dysphoria and I don't transition because I cannot pass. So if I don't transition myself, that you'll say a lot regarding my views regarding that. But I also don't want to push my values too hard in the transmaxxing manifesto because that's not the purpose of that writing. The purpose of the transmaxxing manifesto is to help other people improve their quality of life. It is not to like push ideology. And for that reason I cannot like push it too hard because then I will like insert my values and alienate people. But
Yeah, 'cause it's an interesting dismantling of gender being a social construct because it's like, well, it's not a social construct because if you read somebody as male, you're gonna like men know that that if they're like if they take HRT or whatever and they're non-passing and they try to like pass themselves off as female, they know like the level of like social pressure, violence, like they know firsthand that gender is not a social construct. It's the way that we interact with gender as human beings is like a very hardwired instinct. Like, do you agree with that?
I'm not sure to what extent it's hardwired, but the thing with gender is that people use like gender as sex. The left claims that they are like separate things. It is not. Like even if you accept gender as a separate, as a different concept, it is not really separate because it's so much tied to sex characteristics of your body, like even the brain, and like including, for example, like if you like try to cross dress, it will not look good on you if you are like male because you don't have breasts, so it doesn't like fit with your bra, whatever. This is a good example of how it is tied to biology in a very simple, benign, very simple way that is almost so simple. So it's very surprising people don't want to see the super obvious, like if you don't have breasts, why should you wear like a bra? It doesn't make sense.
I guess to like because a lot of people have been talking about some kind of like sexual type stuff, and I think in the context like you could have somebody who's non-passable, but they're just they just want to use it as a tool to enhance their sex life, or like you've had people that they just don't want to lose their hair or whatever, and they're like, okay, I'm taking HRT to maintain my youthful looks. Like there's some people, I don't want to like name drop or whatever.
Yeah,
It
but
seems like a lot of people have a lot of different reasons. Or you could have people who they find that it enhances, like let's say they go on, what's that website called, like I think it's Grinder, and they could go on Grinder and they could be like a non-passing trans woman, but they could go on Grinder, and because they're on HRT and they sort of fit into like a quote unquote she-male category in Grinder. There's a lot of guys that are just into that kind of porn, and they say, okay, well that's like the porn I watch, and I can just live out some fantasy. So it seems like you could have people who are just interested in like different motives for, I don't want to say transition, but for HRT specifically.
yeah, the thing with that is that it was the same problem as before. Is that either you're going to become like a feminine male, which is not a great idea. Like even for hair loss, it might not be worth it. You just take finasteride or whatever. No, I don't believe you should take full HRT just for hair loss. It's not worth it. Especially not with the fertility risk. So no, it's not a good idea. So you don't want to be like a feminine male. So your option is either to like you need to like honeymoon and this is something I need to cover in the next version of the transmaxxing manifesto, because from what I've seen is that it is better to hon mode than to boy mode for years. Like you should let boy mode for too long. That's something I realized later. So you need to
Well,
like
so explain that. Like, what happens if someone boy modes for too long?
yeah, it's they are like a feminine male and get like nothing. This actually happened to a person that is kind of close to me. I will not mention here or his name, but like he or she like struggled to get any sexual success at all because for the females you are like a feminine males. If they are like heterosexual, so they are like turned away from that, and like gay guys don't want to either because they have tits and stuff, and like lesbians don't want it because they're too masculine. So you're all in this no man's land. So
Mm.
you need to like
I don't know.
commit.
If they were just interested in sex, I think they could go on Grinder. I've never been on Grinder, but like I've heard people talk about their experiences, and it seems like if they just okay, I heard someone say that there was a gay guy, and he was like flirting with the idea of transition, and he was just like doing drag, right? He started out doing drag. He like had no gender dysphoria, didn't know what gender transition was. Like he was just sort of like into the drag scene, right? And he said that he would go on Grinder, and there were guys. He said as long as he was wearing like a mop on his head, like quote unquote, as long as he had a mop on his head, there were guys that would go for him. And it's an exaggeration, but like if he was dressed in drag as a gay guy, he would get like crazy amounts of people messaging him on Grinder. And then he was his whole point with, or I guess it's she now. So she transitioned, and she said that like she was disgusted with her like her sex addicted behavior as a gay guy, and she like I guess the hormone replacement therapy made her stereotypically female, and she was like disgusted with her behavior. And I've heard several instances of that where they, after transition, they become disgusted with male sexuality, and like they kind of turn on their former selves, and they find like men's sex drives to be disgusting. But anyway, what the fuck were we just talking about? There was a reason I
I
brought
get
that
your
up.
point, and this fits into what I was saying is that you need to like on the mode, like you need to present as a female, like even if you cannot pass. So
Yeah.
you don't want to present as a male at least. So like you can honeymoon and get some benefits from that. This is true. I'm not sure how beneficial it is for like cis females though. So if you want to like have children, it might not be that beneficial. But if you like you just want to attract them to generate like chases and stuff, it probably works. So I'm not
But so
sure.
that could, like, let's say that somebody found transmaxing at a young age, and then they ended up doing HRT for a while, and they end up kind of like repressing and being like forced into boy mode, even though they're like young and passable. They for social pressure reasons because they're young and in school and shit like that. They get like forced into boy mode. Do you think that fucks them up psychologically in some way?
I mean, it's definitely bad because not only do they have to present male and not live as a female as they want, they also do it while on female hormones, which makes it too much harder. So it's going to make the experience even worse. So they get the benefit of being able to pass easier later, but they get the disadvantage of having to present male when they are on female hormones, which is a bad thing. You don't want to do it for too long.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. So yeah. So it just yeah. Okay. So what I think I'm starting to understand what you're saying. It's like my brain can't work as fast. You're saying that the worst thing is to be an effeminate male, and if they get pushed into boy moding or man moding or whatever you want to call it, if they get pushed into that, then they're on female hormones, and so they have like all of these emotional issues with being on female hormones, but they're being socially treated as male and being abused by society like that. That's yeah, that could do like a lot of psychological damage. Yeah, so that because this gets into the heart of what I was saying about I guess I wanted to bring up this idea of ready fire aim. That's something that maybe I could be wrong about this in the context of transition based on what you're saying, because the idea behind ready fire aim, if you don't know that, there's a book by a famous business consultant called his name is Michael Masterson, and the book is called Ready Fire Aim. And the idea is that anytime you're going to make a big decision, like if I want to make a decision about changing careers or starting a business, or I've got an idea for some invention, the first thing I want to do is instead of committing all my time and resources to that thing, what I want to do is it's called ready fire aim instead of ready aim fire. So what you do is ready, that's you like figure out what you're going to do, and then fire is you just do a test drive, right? So you like if you have this big $100 million business, you do a $1 million micro test of that business to see if there's market demand for the product or whatever. So you come up with some shitty prototype. You might lose money on that $1 million, but you get to find out if the product is viable. So in the context of something like gender transition, ready fire aim would be, well, you don't sit around and think about taking hormones, and you don't like socially transition quickly. The social transition is the aim, right? The fire is take the hormones. So ready, you come up with some reason to transition. That's ready. Fire is you go on HRT. So you just say fuck it and you go on HRT as fast as you can. As soon as you realize that you think it might be a good idea, you want to do it, you would just go try hormones. That's fire. And then aim is after you've been on hormones. After you've been on hormones for, let's say, I don't know, 9 months to a year or 2 years or whatever, there's sort of like a point of no return, right? You hit this point where you say, okay, am I going to continue on hormones and then socially transition, or am I going to go hun mode? Am I going to go, there's all these directions that you can go, and that's the aim. And I think maybe what you're saying is that when they reach that aim point, like then they could figure out, like, after they've been on hormones for a while, they could figure out, like, in terms of aim, what to do with their I would call it their biological endpoint, or like the sort of biological potential, because then they could see how hormones affect them, and then they could see if it's right. So if you were going to integrate that into transmaxing, you could reference the concept of ready fire aim and just say, look, going on hormones is not as big of a decision as you would think, right? It's kind of a small decision. The big decision is once you've been on hormones for a while, the big decision you have to make is the aim, which is where do you go with your transition after you've been on hormones and you see where it's gone. That
Yeah,
that's what's been on my mind with a lot of this stuff.
yeah, and of course, this is what I recommend is that you might want to try HRT if you think that it might be beneficial for you. And then you will find out how it affects your brain. You might, for example, notice that, oh fuck, these female hormones fuck up my brain. I cannot like think clearly. I'm like dumb and stupid, and this doesn't work at all. And I'm too emotional. Like I cannot get anything done I need, and I like get depressed of it or whatever. Like it's really unpredictable. Like. People want to like say this thing like you want to figure out before if you want to transition or not, but you cannot really do that because you don't know how female hormones are going to affect your brain, because this is from an individual to an individual basis. You don't know if you're going to like it or not before you try it. So you need
Yep.
to gamble and be ready to quickly detransition if it doesn't work out. And I actually mentioned this in the transmaxxing manifesto that you might need to like stop the hormones if it doesn't work out. So you shouldn't like commit to your transition like before you realize that this is like what you want to do, because I don't think some people decide that they want to transition and like they ignore like warning signs if they show up, so they go too far gone with it to the point of no return. So, and also what I will say is that it is a binary choice. You cannot do the non-binary thing. This is the fiction. You need to either commit to like on mode or passing, or you need to like present as male and not be on female hormones. There is nothing in between that works. You cannot
Yeah.
like be
Yeah.
non-binary or like the at best the only thing you can do is to grow long hair, which isn't even like feminine anymore. This is the only thing you can do pretty much. You can maybe
Yeah.
paint nails in private or something, which I don't even think is a good idea. Like, I wouldn't even recommend cross-dressing for people who don't want to transition, because they are probably just going to trigger dysphoria if they do that. I think that is a trap.
Wait, they're gonna trigger dysphoria if they do what?
If they cross-dress, if they have like propensity to like, if they already experience gender dysphoria, like going on using female clothes is probably going to make it even worse.
That's fucked up.
Yeah, I
Wow.
don't have evidence for it yet, but it makes sense in my head at least. And
Yeah.
and I've seen like some anecdotal like signs that like if you try to like do the partial thing where you cross-dress to makeup or whatever, then you're going to trigger more dysphoria and you're going to want more. You're not going to like get satisfied with that anyway. So you need to like man up or transition and become a hon and nothing in between. Like you cannot like half-ass anything. Like
Yeah, and yeah, that's an interesting. Hold on, that's an interesting meta philosophy. Like, if you think about that, what you're really saying is that you have to like you have to fall into one camp or the other. Like, you don't want to end up in life in a sort of like nebulous place of indecision, vacillating back and forth between this and that, and kind of like wandering around in a nebulous place, right? You're saying that that human beings kind of need to like fall. They need to like have their feet firmly planted into something that's sort of like a sort of like human reality, human nature kind of perspective. Do you agree with that? That people, like you're saying, they should hun mode and just say, okay, I don't pass, but I'm female. La la la. I don't care what you think. And now they're firmly in female camp, or they need to just like put like their whole association. Like you're saying that if they're not going to go in that direction, what they really should be doing is like saying, okay, I'm not going to look at porn. I'm not going to look at, I guess some people look at hypno porn or whatever, and they trigger their dysphoria that way. And they're not going to look at this, they're not going to look at that, and they're just going to like put it all in a fucking box, throw it away. And I don't know, maybe they could take testosterone too. Like they could go totally in the opposite direction, and they
I'm
could
not
just
sure how to like repress the best. I will not say throw away like your clothing, because what you're doing then is you're not like throwing discipline. Like if you if you feel like you're addicted to cross-dressing and you want to stop, you shouldn't throw them away. You should keep your clothing at home and then just use them, because then you build character. So this is a very common trap people make when they want to quit an addiction. They try to use all this help instead of building discipline. They try to do something else, like instead of not watching porn. If they don't want to do that, they like try to block it from their phone. Like it doesn't work. Like you need to rely on yourself, not on all these tools. And what ends up happening for a lot of people who throw away their cross-dressing clothing is they just buy new clothing and waste money. So you're betting off just scuffing it away somewhere, because then if you relapse you don't lose money at least. And then you need to like
Wow. Okay. So this discussion is like kind of like weaving its way into like addiction, and that kind of like circles back to what I was saying about copes, where I was like, well, you've got porn and video games, and those are like these massive copes that the male population is kind of relying on. I really don't know what kind of copes the female population uses. Do you think it's just like antidepressant drugs? Because like I think like 50% of American women take antidepressants like daily. I think it's like super
a
high.
lot of females believe in the psychiatry pseudoscience. This is super common, like they believe in psychology, psychiatry. This is a very feminine thing. Like there are like figures for that, like ECT is like mostly women who are like victims of that fuckery. So yeah, I believe this is a very common quote among females, is all the psychology stuff. This is like bullshit, but a lot of females love all this. And astrology, all this like psychology, pseudoscience, like anything with psychology, females like love this. Because like especially women are really bad at like spotting pseudoscience and realize that something is bullshit. They are like have a harder time seeing that stuff. Like I'm not saying like males are like good at it, but females are even worse. They are even easier to fall for even more obvious nonsense, because it like
Yeah, I think that's why I kind of ended up having to leave psychology, was because it has been kind of like feminized in that way. It used to be, just so you're aware, back in the like early 1900s, around there. You had behaviorism, you had this like scientific rigor, you had physics envy, and so there was a big emphasis on psychometrics, and they were doing a lot of good work with psychometrics. Like for example, there's a concept of JND, which is just noticeable difference, and you can actually objectively measure something like that. It's a perceptual measure, but it's objectively measurable. So you could do psychometric studies on people and get some really compelling, like objective data. And so psychology was kind of like coming into its own as a hard science up until I would say maybe like the 1960s. Around the time of I don't know, second or third wave feminism, whatever you want to fucking call it. But that's when it kind of got taken over by personality psychology. Now, Jordan Peterson, he comes out of the personality psychology movement, and in psychology departments, you have these different divisions. You have like personality psychology, social psychology, cognitive psychology, and cognitive psychology is the only like holdover of that prior era, and the other areas like social psychology, personality psychology, developmental psychology, all those other branches are pretty much pseudoscience. And then the people that do the research for like the DSM and stuff like that, the people that are involved in that, they're in the abnormal psychology departments, and that's all just pseudoscience too. It's like you said, it's basically astrology, right? It's like palm reading for your mind or whatever. So the point that I was trying to make is like, I don't know if you're like consciously aware of like what went on in psychology, but your intuition is like dead on. It's absolutely dead on. And yeah, women are kind of into the psychology thing. They're kind of like into that, the astrology and the psychology and like the psychoanalysis and all that bullshit. And I guess like maybe women, I don't know, do women need a cope? I guess that's the question. It's like men definitely need a cope because their lives are meaningless because they don't have children. but like I wonder how it hits women, because that's just something I don't like. Do you have any insight onto what do women need to cope, or
I mean,
just like
I mean, what I can
yeah.
say at least regarding women is that they have gone very far away from their real instincts. Like they don't have children. They don't really live that good life on average anyway, because a lot of females work in not so great jobs. Like a lot of females like work taking care of like old people and change their diapers and stuff. This is not actually that great of a job. A lot of females have for a low wage too, because females are pushed into like taking care of the old instead of the young people who like need sex and like or take care of children. They like put the time on like taking care of them, like 80-year-old guy or like female who are going to die in 2 years anyway. This is overall the rate of go in society, so of course we need to cope too. But I think females like feel that society works for them. So females are more likely to fall victim to psychiatry and psychology because they think that society works for them, but it doesn't really help them. Like the psychiatric treatment or just as much harm, if not more, on females. It's not like ECT doesn't do brain damage when it's applied to a female brain. Like it's harmful too in that case. So
Yeah.
so don't think like. So I think the one misconception is that like females are some great winners in our system. This is not really the true. Like you can get advantages in our society by being female, but if you are not like a black pill or red pill, you're not going to gain that much, because you're going to be taken advantage of by the system too. That you just used up by the system. You're like working and like not even having the great of sex either. You're not going to like have sex with Chad that much. You're going to like go home to some beta box normal guy and like maybe like have one child at 40. So like it's a misconception that feminism is like doing this great work for women. Like they are not, like they are making women into this cog in the machine.
That's an interesting point, because I don't know. So I don't know. I saw some, like, in maybe it was the shit posting channel. Somebody posted a 4chan thread where it was actually kind of a funny like position to take, where they said like all men secretly want to be women, and like I don't know. I don't think that's the case, but I
Absolutely.
think all men, they see the advantages that women have from the system, but they don't see the disadvantages that are inflicted upon them by being ground up by the system. So, like for example, if you have antidepressant medication inflicted upon you, like if you just hit a breaking point where like you have to go on Prozac or whatever the latest SSRI is, if you end up in that situation, that's going to like fuck you up, because the side effects from those medications. By the way, it's crazy that you can't even like discuss the side effects of medication without it being called misinformation. But like, you can read the side of the fucking bottle, and like the side effects for SSRIs are like suicidal thoughts, and one of the side effects of antidepressant medication is depression, and it's like on the side of the fucking bottle. But anyway, if you like warn people about the side effects, you'll get like canceled or whatever. But yeah, if you like go cold turkey off of SSRIs, like a lot of people try to self delete, because yeah, they're like chemically dependent on it or whatever. But
Yeah, of course, it's really harmful to people, and like
yep.
females are really susceptible to this because females think that the system works for them. So they are very naive, and this is the biggest disadvantage with being female, is that you think that the system works for you when it really doesn't. Like when it push comes to shove, like the system has no trouble like fucking over and treating females horribly, like because the system, like the people who don't care about females, they are just like, you know, they are like millions of them, they are not as special to the people with power. So females are like used to thinking that they are like privileged and can don't have to worry about anything, and this creates a false sense of security. So when there is a real danger, they don't see it because they are like used to like they might like females might realize if there is like a male or something that is like aggressive and so they might see it as a danger, but they don't realize females are bad at seeing these hidden dangers where someone pretends to be nice to people. And journalists often like use that against people. Like any good journalist that interviews someone that is going to make a hit piece is not going to say like ask super hard questions. The journalist is going to be like nice to you. And I noticed that with journalists in the survey that they don't really want to talk to me because I'm not naive, so they talk to like other Politburo members who are like naive and don't realize the situation, so they tell them a lot of juicy details that they shouldn't tell them. So and then they just broadcast that in the news article without even asking, then they blame the editor, which happened with the first article. And they interviewed Tina and Kat and me, and it was very obvious that the journalist didn't really want to ask me much because I didn't provide much detail, because I realized that this is not a trustworthy individual. So I warned the other people here that you shouldn't like trust the journalist, and they didn't listen to me because she said that I got a good impression of her or whatever. And then it was a hit piece published in the pirate virus. And what happened then was that the journalist said to these naive people that this was the editor who made it, which may be the case, but the thing is that there is no evidence of there being any conflict between the journalist and the ones who, and the editor and the site owner, like, because I even asked the owner, like, can you send me like the article you wrote, and there was talk on she published the article somewhere else, her version, but it didn't happen, of course. I think she was just lying and like blaming the editor to get away with it because she maybe wanted more info, whatever. So people are naive.
To reference back to the last conversation, in Virus of the Mind, they call that the Trojan horse. So you want to you don't like if you can't attack a gate head on, which they can't attack transmaxxing head on. They're not intelligent enough to read through it and logically go through each point and do the medical research and talk to experts and say, oh no, like the transmaxxing manifesto, like no, they can't attack head on. So what they want to do is they want to use they want to like get in a Trojan horse, so they'll start with you and they'll try to Trojan horse you, and then they realize that that they're inside the Trojan horse, right? They know that they're in there, so then they go to try to Trojan horse somebody else. That's a well-known like psychological manipulation technique. I mean, you could argue that that's how journalism is, because if you look at whenever they were trying to like dismantle right-wing populism around like Trump's election, like if you look at how Vice reporters would butter up to like, I don't know, the like the Charlottesville protesters, like they got in their hotel rooms and then like they were like walking around brandishing guns on video to this reporter. Like they had like assault rifles and pistols and shit, and they were like cocking them on camera. I'm like, are you fucking stupid? Do you know like what a Vice reporter is? Like, what the fuck is wrong with these people? But yeah, they got Trojan horsed. Yeah.
Yeah, and this is what Vice does all the time. Like they are not going to be hostile, so they are going to be nice. Or then the dumb right-wingers think that, oh, he's a nice reporter, and sure, she's nice because he's like providing him all these user details, and so they are like useful idiots for them, and they don't realize it. Like a lot of journalists are like that. They're going to be friendly to anyone they're going to interview, no matter what. Like even the Daily Caller journalist was like super professional and nice and stuff like this. There was no bullshit at all. He was actually the most straightforward journalist. Like he just asked me question and answered, and that was that. This was nothing that complicated. But I think he realized that I wouldn't buy into this I'm nice guy bullshit.
Yeah, well, you know what they always say, like their big, like the ultimate Trojan horse line they use is, well, we just want to get your side of the story. That's what they always say.
Yeah, of course.
And that works probably fucking 90% of the time. We just want to hear your side of the story. Yeah, that's fucked up. We just want to be fair to you. We just want to yeah, that's how you know that they're writing a hit piece about you, is
Yeah,
they just say
I have to tell you, the journalist told me that this is not a hit piece, and I was like saying all to others, but this is a hit. I was like warning everyone else that this is going to be a hit piece, because I realized then that if you say that you're definitely writing a hit, this is super obvious. Like at least if you're smart about it, you don't mention that, because this is like saying I'm not scamming you now. You can behave faithfully. This is like the biggest red flag ever.
yeah, that's fucked up. Okay, there's a big topic that I guess we need to dig into. Let me see. I guess how do I broach this topic? Well, okay, before we leave this concept of the cope, I want to put the cope thing to rest, because there's like a bigger topic that cuts through everything that we got to get back to. But in terms of the cope, like um, like I guess for men and women, there are like you almost never hear women use the term cope, but you hear in like black pill circles, even in red pill circles, in MGTOW circles, in like you hear the word cope thrown around just like nothing, and but you almost never hear women using the term cope. It seems like women's mindsets are more like tethered to the political. Like they don't. I think women don't think in terms of cope, because like a cope is like, okay, a man is in the situation, he's got to solve the problem, so he's like, okay, I got to put a band-aid on the bleeding. That's what a cope is. Like, I'm bleeding somehow, my life is meaningless, so I'm gonna like throw something on it. I'll throw some drugs at it. I'll throw some video games at it, whatever, and we'll just like, buckle up and get through life somehow. That's like a man is just going to cope with the situation. But it seems like women, instead of coping, it seems like they attach themselves to political movements, and that's in terms of how they sort of get through life. It's like, well, I'm going to latch on to this collectivist vehicle of some sort. Maybe it's going to be like political, or I'm going to go on social media, or whatever. And so, or another possibility, I could be totally wrong about women. Another possibility is that they have such a low sex drive, not like a naturally low sex drive, and they have such easy access to sex that they don't feel the need to cope, because like they always have some kind of like they don't have any like feeling of desperation the way that men feel desperation. So I don't know. How do you see the issue more? Which, like, where do you kind of lean?
I mean, the way I see it is that females don't really feel the way males feel. They don't really feel the same despair, because if they want children, they can have children. If they want sex, they can get sex. If they want to have a career, they can get a career. So the issue with females is not really like not getting what they want. It's more that they got what they want and know what. This is like different from males, who often have clear things they want, but they cannot get it. Well, females get what they want and get depressed or whatever because of it.
Hmm. Wow. Yeah, I think that's correct. Yeah, women in society, especially Western society, women tend to get what they want, right? And men are in a position, because I wonder, if men were in a position to just get what they want, would they? I don't know. Like, would they be like, oh, I've got everything I want, I'm content, and I don't need to cope, or like it's interesting, because I guess I'm kind of in a position where I've got a lot of what I want. Like I was telling you last time we talked, I'm in a position where I made a conscious effort to go into an industry where there's a low supply and high demand for workers, and then I geographically relocated to compound that effect. And so now I'm in a position of like being in demand, and so like I used to get paid shit money and get treated like shit, and so like it's counterintuitive because you would think, well, the less money you make, the better you would get treated, but it's actually not true. The less money you make, the worse you get treated. So I make more money and I get treated way better. And the point that I was making is that like I'm in a position now. I was never in this position before, and now that I'm in this position, I'm like super paranoid and clinging onto it as hard as I can because I don't want to lose it. But the point is that I've never been in this position before, where like it's kind of the position that women are in, like born into, where like you're just naturally in demand, like you're in a position where you're in demand, and and so I guess maybe I don't get like put on a pedestal, but I just don't get treated like shit anymore, and I'm very very content with being in that position, right? Like and so I don't feel like as driven toward copes, if you will. Like I see a lot of guys in like black pill and red pill MGTOW types of situations, and they're like very mentally unhealthy. They're very desperate. They're just kind of in a bad situation. But like once I sort of turn my career around and stabilize, like I don't feel as desperate, but I do feel like there's kind of something. I mean, we talked about this before. I feel, you would say that I'm missing children, right? You say I need children, and if I had children, I wouldn't feel the need to like indulge in copes, you know. But anyway, I don't know. I don't know. What do you think about like going from a state of not getting what you want to getting what you want?
Yeah, there
Like,
is one difference I forgot to mention. Like just having children and reproducing, this is great and all, but as a male there is one step above that, and the step above that is getting power over society. Like you become an emperor, you become like the next Augustus, the next Trajan. And if you could become something like that, this is like the next level of greatness that is very hard to achieve. Like even if you have like three children, you might still want this extra power over society. And this is like the ultimate thing as a male to and I don't think actually you want to become like a sole emperor because then everyone else want to kill you. You want to be a part of a ruling elite. You have other people who also maintain the system. And I actually noticed it with the transmaxxing server because we have the Politburo system. When there is like a crisis, other people will like chime in and try to like resolve the situation because they are also invested into like the power because their power is at risk too. So you want to have other people investing into upholding the system, but not too many people, because if you have too many people, then people will get demotivated and not do their best.
hmm. Yeah, that's interesting. Now, I guess what you're describing is what I would call like building a dynasty. So, like for example, Bill Gates, he's going to give each of his children like $5 million. I think he has 3 kids, but he's going to like give the rest of his fortune to charity when he dies. And I'm like, well, that's like the stupidest fucking thing you could do. If you're building a dynasty, what you would do is you would tell your children that you don't want them working and that like they're just going to like learn how to invest their money and that they're going to just focus on reproduction. Like if I had billions of dollars, I would be like, first of all, I would have like I guess you can't legally marry all the women, but I would have probably like if I'm Bill Gates, instead of going on TV and talking about vaccines all day, I would just like fall into the shadows and secretly have like mistresses everywhere, and I would try to have at least like 50 children, and then what you would want to do is you would just want to leave those children your wealth, and you would want to try to like strong arm the woman into educating them to be like dynastic Machiavellian. Like you would give them sort of like a classical elite education. You would keep them out of public schools, and you would sort of like build up a dynasty where you would have enough children and enough wealth invested in each child, and you would have ideologically imprinted greatness upon them. You don't necessarily need to be, you know, the emperor himself, but you could build a dynasty. Like
Yeah,
I think in those terms. Like if I ever got my hands on $10 million, I could build a dynasty.
yeah,
A small one.
absolutely. This is probably the word I was looking for. Anyway, what you can do then is that you don't actually need to like strong arm the woman to do what you want with your children. You can just have a lot of them, and then like maybe 50% just end up in public schools and do whatever. But then you have you have like maybe 25 children, then of them you really invest into them because they want to like continue your legacy, whatever. So let's say you have 50 children. 25 of them might you might not even have much control over. They might end up in some public school or whatever. Maybe something good will come out of it. It's like a gamble. It can work out, not work out. And this is like, if you're familiar with the RK reproductive theory, and what I'm describing now is something beyond that. You do this. This is like a all strategy for like 25 of your children. You don't really take care of them that much. You do the basic stuff and let them gamble, and maybe it works out, maybe it doesn't. And then if there are like 5 children that show promise, they might be interested in your ideology, then you work with them to like you have this inner club among your children that really want to believe in your ideology and want to like further your cause or whatever, and you really like focusing on them. And this is like the like elite among your children that you focus on and really invest into. And then you might find out that among this elite it works out well, and among these say other 40 children, maybe like 10 or maybe 5 of these are really successful too, but in ways you didn't foresee, because maybe they have some other vision they wanted to do. Maybe they start some company or whatever, something completely different from what you had in mind, and get successful anyway, but not because of you, because of other factors, because of their genes, or maybe like they went to a public school and then they realized that the public school system sucks and then got into politics or whatever. Like anything can happen with these people. So you're
Yeah,
like,
well, if it's Pareto distributed, you're gonna have out of like 50 children, what are you gonna have 8 of them or something like that, or no, 10 out of 50. You're gonna have 10 out of 50 that are gonna, probabilistically, it's not like guaranteed, but like there would tend to be about 10 out of 50 that you would focus on, and then out of those 10, there would be a couple that would like really, and what you could do is you would just match their like the ones that are best at carrying on your legacy. You would just match their inheritance with their devotion to your legacy. So like there would be, it would sort of be like minimum maximum. Like all of your children get a minimum of like, I don't know, $5 million, but the ones that carry on your legacy get like 500 million or whatever. I don't know. You just sort of reward the ones that just happen to align with you. That's how you maximize your legacy. And a lot of people think they have to split their inheritance evenly among all their children.
you
But
don't.
if you give an equal proportion to the ones that are just going to blow it, you're just pissing your money away. So
Yeah, this is a
yeah,
big fallacy I heard from some people. I had argument about this, that one people, you might think that it's better to have like 5 children and invest a lot into everyone. The issue is then that after the 5, maybe like one, if you're lucky, has like the genes required for it. So you're just wasting your effort on like people or children who don't really show promise. So you need to like do it selectively. You need to like have more children. So you need to have a lot of children and then focus on the quality. So you actually need the quantity to get the quality. You cannot get quality without also getting quantity, unless you do like genetic engineering and stuff, which isn't like feasible. Like the issue is then that it's too much effort. You're better off just having a lot of children than like rolling the roulette wheel and trying to like do genetic engineering. You're better off just
yeah, think about it. Think about it. If you're talking to somebody who doesn't understand it, then they're not above the cutoff, right? They're like like you and I, we're at that like dynastic level. Now I don't have the money to be at that level. I don't have the drive or the ambition to be at the level. But I guess I have the mindset of somebody who like I can see what Bill Gates is doing, and I'm like, well, it doesn't matter that Bill Gates has billions of dollars because he's not going to create a lasting legacy with it. So who fucking cares that he's richer than you? You shouldn't look at Bill Gates like, oh, you know what, like, I'm so envious of his wealth. His wealth doesn't mean shit when he, you know, and the thing is, he's like, Bill Gates is an incel. So like, what the fuck difference does it make? Like, his wife divorced him, and you know, he's like obese and dysgenic, and like, what the fuck does it matter that he has tons of money? Like, he doesn't get any value. You have to, like, that's another thing people don't understand about money, is that you have to actually get value out of money. You just having money is pointless. Like, he's not living $1 billion lifestyle. He's not like having sex with like the most attractive prostitutes in the world from all around the world, all, like one a day. Like, he doesn't have a personal trainer that's like keeping him in peak physical health. Like, all of that potential from his fortune is wasted, and he's going on TV talking about vaccines and shit. Like, so what the fuck difference does it make that he has that money? People can't parse that out.
Yeah, people
Like, I
don't
don't I
even
don't give
like
a shit. But
people don't
yeah, go
even
ahead.
like Bill Gates. Like either people don't care about him or people don't like him because they think he's behind some agenda. Which I don't think he is. He's just some blue-pilled cock. But anyway, like we were talking about like prostitutes. Like you can't actually do this as a billionaire. They will come after you if you tried it at all. Like with Epstein. Or even like if you move to some other country. Like even if you have a lot of money, you need to be pretty careful with how you do it. So the way you do it as a billionaire is that you just fuck a woman and you pay child support, and by that way you give them money. So you give them money via the child support, and this is like a way to get out of the prostitution laws because you're forced to give them money. So you pay them for sex legally that way. It's actually a very smart strategy. But
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, when you get to that level, I mean, you have personal assistants and shit like that, and you can hire top strategists and PR firms and shit like that. Like, they don't have to, they don't have to like exist in the same risk profile that we do. I mean, like, they can, like for example, you could hire a personal assistant who just like contacts prostitutes on your behalf under you know,
yeah.
and then like, you know, you could do it that way if you had the money
Yeah,
and
but the
you wouldn't
thing is,
personally be
you
exposed to it. But
don't need
yeah.
to do any of that. All you need to do is that you say that you're like looking for someone to have children with, you make them pregnant, they pay child support. Then after that, you're going to like, get like a lot of people who women who want that because they want all the child support money. The thing is
Oh,
though that this works for having children, which is like the main goal in mythology. It might not work for having the best sex, which should be the goal anyway. This is for reproducing and the reproduction before anything else. So you don't actually pay for any sex, you just pay for your children. So you don't actually, you shouldn't pay for sex at all. You should never do that. You should only pay child support.
okay, okay. Yeah, that's a good strategy. It's like we're wargaming scenarios we're never gonna be in.
I
It's like
mean,
that.
it's not unrealistic. Like you can earn like $10 million easily if you're successful as a business owner. Then you can do the strategy at a smaller scale. You can still do the strategy.
Yeah, no, it's good to think about the strategy. The strategy always helps. Most people don't even think. Most people don't even have a strategic thought in their head. You know, so
Yeah,
it's
but
always helpful to flex those muscles.
yeah, but this is a big like issue here is that like a lot of males are too focused on sex. So they get into legal trouble for buying sex from a prostitute when they can do it legally by making females pregnant and get offspring from it too. This is by far the best option. Like if you want to buy sex, just make females pregnant and then you pay them for it. It's that simple,
Yeah,
and people don't see the obvious because they don't think in that way. They are like not conditioned to think in that flexible way. Yeah,
yeah, yeah. So like Bill Gates could like put a profile on a dating website, and women would just flock to him because they know that he's going to impregnate them, and then they're going to get child support. Is that the idea?
yeah, pretty much. Like this is the only thing you need to do. Use the child support system to your advantage.
Okay. Yeah, yeah, yeah. So yeah, the perception thing. Okay, because I guess I wanted to finish up the idea of like the topic of copes, because I don't know, because okay, let me ask you, where does coping intersect with transmaxing? Because like it would seem like transitioners are going to have they're going to have like a mishmash of like the sort of both the male and female exposure on the issue of coping, because like I guess it's probably going to be common for them to be playing a lot of video games. Like I think you're going to see a lot of like video gaming in the trans community, and that's like a stereotypically male cope. And then I guess they sort of they sort of have access to the sexual marketplace in a way they didn't before. But in a sense, that type of sex, if it's just cheap, meaningless sex, it's just going to be a cope as well, right?
Yeah, there is a big issue with the trans community and with the trans thing, which I don't even cover as much because, like, I might cover it in mythology, but not in transmaxxing too much. Is that, like, sure, you can have sex as a trans woman fairly easily, but if you want children, it doesn't really work that well because then you need to have like cis lesbian, which is way harder, and then you need to also impregnate them, which is also harder because, like, let's say you banked sperm in some hospital somewhere, yeah, then you need to take your girlfriend there to be like impregnated via that bank sperm. It's not practical. What you can do is that you can get off HRT and then it takes several months before you get like your fertility back, if you get it back at all. And then you can make it pregnant. This is like the most practical way to have like children as a trans female. You need to get off HRT every time you want to have children. This is like the biggest issue right now with transitioning. And the issue is also that I'm like the only one like interested in solving that problem pretty much. Like I never like I talk about it in like transfixion and nobody else cares at all. Like
No, well, because I guess my question is do they? Because I'm not familiar with the trans community and the issues that they face. So I guess what I'm interested in is like, do they end up in a position, kind of back in some sense, not in every sense, but in some sense back where they are when they were male, where they're like down the road, like initially maybe they get this burst of dopamine or whatever, this burst of like meaning, but then maybe after a while of like, you know, getting attention and whatever, after a while, that kind of like emptiness sets back in, and they're like watching Jordan Peterson videos or something. Like, I'm wondering, like, is that the way it goes down for them, or do they fall more into that female typical pattern where they just kind of get what they want and they don't care?
I think that a lot of people will like on the estrogen be kind of happy because it's like a drug that I get the impression that what estrogen really does is that it eliminates the need for coping. So it's like it makes me complacent, so you are okay with not having children and getting fucked in the ass or whatever. Like it doesn't matter anymore because you don't care anymore. This is what estrogen can do to you.
Wow. Okay. I did not pick that up from reading Transmaxing. Is that explicitly written in
It's
Transmaxing?
not written in because I don't know if it is true or not. It's just the impression I get from like from trans females is that they don't really care about this stuff anymore. Like it kind of like testosterone, it makes you competitive. I want to like reproduce. So maybe like if you're nesting, you don't really have the drive anymore. So you're like fine with dying childless and like getting fucked by a male or whatever you do.
Wait. Hold on. I have to say this. This could be like a revolutionary thought. So, so estrogen. Let me just say this in a very blunt way, and then you can correct it on a technical level. Estrogen is like, maybe is it like the ultimate cope? Like, is estrogen a cope, or like it's a cope? I don't know how to say it. It's like a cope remover, or like, because like a lot of these, I didn't really get that from reading Transmaxing, but the way you're describing it to me is that you have these incels that are like going from one cope to another. They're like, maybe they're into gambling, maybe they're into video games, and maybe like geomaxing as a cope, or maybe they like join a black pill community and they bitch, you know, and have a pity party, and that's like a cope. They come up with all these different, like they come up with some really creative copes, by the way. I don't know how familiar you are, but so they have all these copes, and then like you can say, hey, look, if you go on HRT, you don't have to cope anymore because you just won't care. Like,
I mean, this is like the idea behind transmaxxing. Like the original idea was that to make male complacent, and this is like what the idea had with this, like that you can use estrogen as for social control. So you make people like not care anymore and accept their like situation. So like this is like the idea behind like psychiatry. What psychiatrists want to do is that they want to make people complacent and accept their shitty situation, and like not rebel against authorities. And one idea had, and this is like expressed in the Transmaxing Manifesto, is that I was hoping that maybe Esrian would like prevent male from being like criminals and stuff. They would like accept their lot in life and not rebel against the system. And this is like, I'm not sure if this will work or not. This is like a hope I have at least, that you can use forced HRT. So instead of voluntary transition, you force people to transition, then they become like complacent and stuff. Like kind of like translation was more hardcore.
hold on. So what you're saying is force feminize male prisoners. Is that what you're saying?
Yes.
That's hilarious. Hold on. You know what's funny is I've actually thought about that. Like subconsciously, I'm like, wait a minute. Why don't they just feminize all the male prisoners, and then you wouldn't like that would be like the punishment for violent male crime. So like in the past, I had that as like an idea. Like I was like, no, that's stupid. But like now that you're saying that, I'm like, wait a minute, that actually makes logical sense. Like that's like the ultimate punishment for crime, right? That would be like a deterrent, right? If you go to prison, they're gonna like force you to take HRT while you're on the inside of the prison, and that would actually bring about reform.
Yeah, the idea is also that you don't allow people to bank sperm, then you like have them die childless too. So it's not like so it will still be a deterrent, because if you are like regular transition voluntarily, you can bank your sperm and have a chance to reproduce. But if you commit a crime, you don't get the chance. You get like forcefully injected and are not able to get off it. Like unless you like get found innocent later. So it is still this reversible thing, that if you're found later, that maybe you're not a risk anymore. Maybe you do something good. You're like allowed to like get off it to bank sperm or like impregnate someone. But if you like don't like improve your ways, you are like forced to stay it like until you die, and you never have any children too. So it's actually a double punishment. So it is
Well,
a
they would get.
deterrent.
It would be practical because the prison guards would have less of an issue maintaining that male population if they were on HRT. If they were all forced to take HRT and testosterone blockers, like they would be complacent and docile, and then like you wouldn't have riots and you wouldn't have like gang fights and stuff. So it would be like on a practical level, it would actually make sense. but anyway, this is no, this is a fascinating discussion, very very fascinating, because this is something that I didn't understand until you like explicitly said it. But like there's some logic to the quote unquote pink pill. Like if somebody is looking to be more content with their life, like some people will, I don't know, maybe they'll like smoke marijuana, or they'll like try to take I don't know, barbiturates or opiates or whatever. Like they could also try the pink pill, and like especially if they're in a situation where they're like coping super hard and it's not working, you could almost say, well, like, hey, are you an incel and like you're obsessed with trying to cope and nothing works? Try the pink pill, and it's like, here it is, and it's like on some biochemical level, like that might be the most cope-tastic drug that exists. Like I don't know. Do you agree that like the pink pill probably brings about the highest level of contentment in that regard, or is your position on that kind of more tenuous? Like you don't know.
I mean, in theory, it can be like the ultimate coup, because you get sexually satisfied, you get like estrogen makes you feel like stronger emotions too, so you get like cries more and more happiness and stuff. So you like enjoy the small stuff more. You enjoy like a simpler existence, and you like have your trans female girlfriend that fucks you there, so you get a nice orgasm, and you like enjoy like when you take a touch on your breast too, because you get these sensations and stuff when you moon. So it's like ultimate hedonist maxing. Like if you're into hedonism, it kind of makes sense because it's like all about pleasure and like having fun stuff. It's not that
Ew,
really. It's not
that's
really.
kind of the. Go ahead. Go ahead.
It's not really ideal if you want to build a legacy and like have children and stuff. Like for my priorities, doesn't really work that well. But the thing is also that I wrote a transmaxxing manifesto for other people who don't care about this stuff. Like because I need to like write my other writings too. Like been told like, this is why I'm focus on like reproducing and stuff, and people don't really read that. This people don't want that. Then I wrote like
Yeah.
transmaxing too, which is like for the degenerates, and this is like super popular. So like people can choose what they want to do. Like they can like be degenerate if they want to, or they can like give a status max and money max and all that. And even in the server, we have plenty of people who don't transition, like even in the Politburo.
Yeah, it sounds like what you were describing is like that sounds like the cis female existence. Like it's like they're like you were saying, they're enjoying these simple things and they're kind of like hedonistic. That sounds like, I mean, to me, that sounds like the description of how cis females live their life. Like it's like so in a way, you're kind of like describing some like biological essentialist definition of gender, where well, maybe like it's a like a psychological essentialism, where you're saying the female experience is this like narrow, simple pleasure, easily content, in a way like submissive to their circumstances, where they that like instead of rebelling against their circumstances, they just sort of submit to their circumstances, and that's what's bringing about contentment in their life. And so when men see the contentment that women are experiencing, it's because there is a sort of like essential psychological difference going on between those two biological experiences. Does that make
Yeah,
sense?
yeah, and I also think, and this is something that has become like more and more prominent in my thinking, is that like I don't think that females are supposed to like take charge of things. I think females are supposed to be passive and like other people will like fuck them, impregnate them, and like humiliate them and stuff. Like this is like the ideal female existence, like humiliation and like submission, and like not much more than that. Like they're not supposed to make these decisions and vote and stuff. They're supposed to like have other people like make all the important decisions for them. This is I think what they are like wired for. And like we see all this time how females submit to like whatever society is in place. Like it is all the males that are like rebelling against the system, and the system's working, while the females vote for the status quo every time. Like most males vote to like if you look at how people vote, so almost always for the status quo with minimal changes or whatever it is. So whatever status quo is, people will vote for it. And like look at Obama, how he like promised change, and then when he didn't make change, people like still liked him because they didn't want real change in the first place. So
Yeah. So what you were saying about women is like saying, they're sort of psychologically designed to be submissive. And you said like submissive, humiliation. Those are actually um, on the DS, like what do you call it, like the BDSM scale or whatever. Those are like the primary dimensions of that, and so like it almost sounds like you're saying that women are, I don't know how to say it, like they're more psychosexual in a way, because like um because if you're on the DS spectrum like that, you get sexual gratification from being submissive. You get sexual gratification from being degraded and humiliated and embarrassed and things like that. So it's almost like there is an inherent psychosexual component to being feminine, which would actually feed into your theory of autogynephilia, or maybe not autogynephilia, but like maybe if in terms of sexual orientation, right? Like if you had like an effeminate, submissive male who's into being humiliated and degraded, it would make sense, because I know there's like all this stuff about autogynephilia, but to sort of tack on what I'm saying to that like psychosexual discussion, it's like you could make a logical argument that if a male is into being submissive, into being humiliated in the way that you were kind of describing to me, it seems like HRT or transition, whatever you want to call it, it seems like that would be a good fit, because it's just sort of like a natural, like, oh no, like you can just take HRT and you can just be a woman, and then your sexuality, you can kind of like wear it on your sleeve, right? Because now you're female. Does that make
Yeah,
sense? Like,
yeah, like if you look at the typical like sex acts females like to engage in, because we actually have like data on, we have a good idea on what they want to do. Females don't want to like do pegging, obviously, like a lot of males like that, but females don't really. What females like, they like to like suck dick and like get semen in their tongue and like swallow and stuff. Like all this the more all this kind of degrading stuff, but it's like normalized because like females do it, so people don't think about it. But when I look at what they actually do, it's like really humiliating. Like uh, not just sucking in dick, it's also the thing that when the female gets fucked, she's like what you see happening a lot of the time is that you will see her like moaning and screaming and stuff, and this is also very humiliating because she's like doing all these noises and stuff, and other people can hear her and see her too.
yeah, it's like, well, that's similar to crying. Like if somebody is crying in public, that's like an act of humiliation. So like, yeah, a loss, like humiliation would be loss of control of bodily functions. So like if you urinated yourself in public, like if you peed your pants or something, that would be humiliation. And then crying, that's, tears are a bodily fluid. So if you lose control of your bodily fluids in public, that's humiliation. And I guess you could privately, it would be humiliating as well. And so yeah, like if a woman, if you're having sex with her and she's moaning, that's like adjacent to crying. So it's like somewhere in that realm, I guess. But
Yeah, she's
no,
like
that's it. That
she's
yeah.
she's not in control. You're like dominating here, and she like cannot even control her own voice anymore. This is like that like subjugating over someone, and females love that stuff. Like this is what they want. Like with sex, they don't want some beta guy to like be nice to them because they really want like cis females are like really into this. If you look at what trans females often want is what you call autogynephilia. A lot of them are into the same stuff as cis females, so they are like into this heavy humiliating stuff.
Interesting. Yeah. So I honestly, I wouldn't call that autogynephilia, like maybe on a technical level, because maybe it is, maybe it's not, because
Yeah, I
because
don't
I think
think it's the same thing. I think this is separate. I think there is this humiliation factor and there is autogynephilia factor, and they just
yeah.
happen to go together a lot of the time because they are both like a normal part of female sexuality.
Yeah, because well, yeah, exactly. Yeah, there, because when we've been talking, I guess it's in our conversations we've been saying like we're trying to figure out like what is like heterosexual normative cis female sexuality. What are those components? We're trying to figure out like here there's this component, there's this component, there's this component, and trying to like put a kind of a puzzle together. But one of the issues doing that is that it's going to be politically incorrect. I think somehow cis women benefit from deception in a way where like, oh no no, that's not what we want. That's gross. That's disgusting. We don't want a dominant male to force himself on us sexually. Wink wink wink. Oh that's but secretly that's what they want, and women have kind of backed them. They've painted themselves into a corner because like they've created all of these social norms that if a man behaves in the way that's what they want psychosexually, a dominant man that's maybe forceful, like if you think it's very risky for a man to be sexually dominant because he could be accused of a rapist. If he's going for young women, he can be accused of pedophile. Like younger,
Yeah.
more submissive females. Okay, well then he's running all these. So like men who are dominant that way, they're taking a lot of risk, and so like women have created a situation where they cannot get what they want sexually because of the culture.
Yeah, if you look at a lot of what feminists do is that they oppose male dominance. So for example, if it is like a young female and only male feminists want to ban that. If it is like a female where the female is dependent upon the male even if she is only 18, feminists want to ban that too. If the male is able to pay for the sex, feminists often usually want to ban that too. Not all the time, some are like into sex but because they realize that females make money out of it. But this is like the conflict, are you going to like ban the dominance or are you going to do what's best for females? Like most, I think, lean towards like banning that too because they don't want males to be dominant. This goes against feminists totally. So,
Yeah,
so
it puts them in a kind of paradoxical situation. Yeah, because it's like we were talking about earlier, where women are going to get what they want. Like, okay, they get all the stuff that they want, but then on that in that kind of like psychosexual role, they're out there in society, like kind of forced to be in a dominant role, and that is such a mismatch with their like psychosexuality, and that creates a lot of dissonance, I guess. Like women are very much in a like cis females in the West are in a very dissonant state. They're, or to put it more bluntly, disharmony. Right? They're living in a very like out of harmony kind of like way.
yeah, and if you look at female happiness, females are like less happy now than ever from what I've heard. At least it might not be true, but like they don't seem like happy with society just because they are not being dominated and humiliated and taking in control over because they have this liberal culture where they can do what they want. The females aren't happy because of that, but end up happening is that they go into like some like shitty government job with nursing and stuff to take care of from like old 80-year-old guy and like wipe his ass or something. Like this is what they do. Like this is not a great life to live at all. So I
Yeah.
think this is like the biggest fallacy. So we think that because feminists claim they are for women, they think that it's result of women living these great lives. And this is not really true. Like they can maybe do that, but I think maybe it's easier for a trans female because as a trans female it is like more like acceptable for males to like be dominate and humiliate the trans female because like males don't really have the same inhibitions for a trans female I think.
Oh, okay. So maybe, wow, this is fucking fascinating. So maybe, um, like the popularity of the sort of, I guess you could say like trans porn or something like that. The popularity of that might be that men men have a need for dominance to express dominance, and I don't know what you call it, not be humiliated, but dish out humiliation. I don't know what that's called in BDSM,
It's
but
dominance. Yeah, yeah, look at
uh,
it's not really dominance, it's to humiliate others. We don't have a word for it. It's to humiliate. Uh,
okay, okay. So yeah, let's just use the word dominance for shorthand. So men have a sort of dominance instinct, and I guess that maybe the way that maybe that's something you could put in transmaxing is that like there's all these men who feel better expressing their sexual dominance over trans women, and that's where you fit in the sexual marketplace. Is that like cis males have been brainwashed or whatever. I forget what the fucking word is, into like not
indoctrinated.
expressing their dominance. They're terrified or whatever.
Yeah.
So you would say like if you transition, there's going to be this pool of men who are like itching to express their dominance, on you, and so you're going to have like this. I don't know if it's true or not. but you're gonna have like this cornucopia of men who like can't live without you psychosexually. I don't know. I'm going off into
Yeah.
the fucking weeds
The
here.
thing is that this is also the trouble here is that we have to make all these guesses all the time because there is no real research. Like I had the same problem when it comes to like age and sexual acceptance. I tried to find studies, I could hardly find anything. Like it's obvious that there's like peak somewhere between 18, but like where is almost impossible to find out because there's like everyone is like afraid of doing research that will debunk feminism, and I'm talking about like all feminists here, like
Yeah, but I guess for the purposes of the manifesto, nobody's really like whenever people talk about it in the media, they just say, and it's full of scientific arguments. Okay, but they don't like dig into the arguments. They're just like impressed by it. So like if you were pseudoscientific in an area, or let's just say that you're let's call it speculative,
yeah,
right? If you wanted to
speculative.
be speculative in a particular area and pass your speculation off as authoritative, I don't think anybody's going to give a shit. And it
You're
might actually
probably
enhance the
right.
controversial nature of the manifesto by saying, this is the true nature of female sexuality, and you're going to be like going into that or whatever. I don't know. I'm just spitballing. I don't really have
Uh,
a.
the thing is also with the transmaxxing manifesto is that it's already really provocative. Intentionally so because I wanted to piss off people as much as possible, so I made it really provocative. And the thing is then is that I also wanted to make it hard for people to attack it in any like real way, to make it hard to debunk. So I made all the science stuff.
Oh,
So
okay.
so I have this bait, which is all the provocative stuff, which is like made as provocative as humanly possible, while also not being wrong. So I may try to be correct and provocative at the same time, and I try to max that. So this is like the
Oh,
opposite of what people usually do a lot of the time. People want to like be a peace thing and not like being people upset. I made the exact opposite with the Transmaxing Manifesto. Like just look at the first point, sexual excitement from having a feminine body. Like this is
okay. Yeah, I get that. I get what you're saying because you wanted to. It wouldn't have legs if it was just like controversial. It would be here today, gone tomorrow. But what you built a pair of legs onto the damn thing. Yeah, that makes
yeah,
sense.
and there's nothing preventing me from like writing about like speculation in other parts. Like I should probably write the stuff in writing too that I say to you now. So it's not like nothing prevented it, but the thing is the Transmaxing Manifesto is already right now 77 pages.
Yeah.
This is a lot of text already to read, and people don't have time to read other people listening to it already. So you need to be economic with your space. So are you then going to like make up space for some like tier you have about cis female sexuality or like, and also like a big focus on the Transmaxing Manifesto is also to like the like transgender stuff because it targets heterosexual audience, and a lot of these people don't even want males in the first place, at least not then. So then they might not like care so much about
Maybe the form that you could put it in, the wrapper, could be like a companion guide where I don't I don't care if it's just like the idea. Okay, so you have all this other speculative ideas that seem to really drive like this idea that like if you have an effeminate male who is submissive, is sexually submissive, and wants to be dominated and humiliated, and has AGP and has a female personality, and it's like you line up all these factors, and it's like, well, there might be people that could look at transition. I'm just saying, I don't know, like if you would put it in a compendium or if you just talk about it on this Discord, I don't know, but like that it's an interesting angle. It's an interesting angle because you cannot go and generate a hypothesis without having a conversation like this. Like, is female sexuality on, like, is it like inherently on the dominant submissive spectrum, and it's kind of like it is itself a kink or whatever. I don't know, but But the point is that like I guess this is my final point for the conversation is that you've kind of like stuck a knife into like the sort of like transmedicalist type of thing, with you're saying transitioning without gender dysphoria, right? That's kind of like going against the sort of the medical establishment's monopoly on it, right? On the thought space. So the thing that we started the conversation with was like the feminist thing, and this idea that you're going to have a some kind of counter ideology or some kind of uh, because like the anti SJWs were pushing back against feminism. They were criticizing feminism. But if you think about feminism, it's resistant to criticism. It's like when you shoot the Borg with lasers, they get stronger, not weaker, kind of thing. Like when you criticize feminism, feminism gets stronger because they can hold up women as a human shield. Blah blah blah. Point is, you brought up this idea of a competing, you could call it an ideology or you could call it a movement, whatever you want to call it, some kind of competition. Did you ever like flesh out what specifically that ideology would look like, and does that ideology somehow intersect with transmaxxing? Two-part question.
Ja, samtal.
No, wait. Are you coughing or something? Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, I think that the issue with feminism is that, and you have to approach it differently, because we have things like libertarianism, where you have like a clear action, which is the non-aggression principle, and then all you need to do to debunk libertarianism is you have to falsify that assumption, which is very easy to do, and then you have debunk libertarianism. With feminists, it is that feminists don't really want to make clear what they even believe in, because they don't want to like make it debunkable. So this is very common for like left-wing ideologies, that you don't even know what they believe in, like what do they believe in, like nobody knows, and this is how they get around like people like criticizing them, and then they want to be like on the attacking side, and you cannot
it's meta strategic. It's got a strategy built into the ideology, which is always be on the offensive. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, and they make it auto attack because they don't make it too concrete. So you think the what you have to do as an if you have like a political ideology is that if you make any kind of assumption, it has to be like rock solid based on evidence. If it's based on assumption, then it's like you can falsify that assumption. In the case of like left-wing ideology, they kind of hide their basic assumption, and the like basic assumption with the left-wing politics is that you have this equity thing where you want to force everything to be equal. So let's say you have like someone who is smart and someone who is dumb, and maybe they take a test. This is like a third left-wing solution is that you give a drug to the smart guy to become like dumb again, and then everyone is equal. This is like how we solve it, and you might say that this is insane, and it is, but this is the equivalent of what a lot of like left-wingers do, is that you need to bring down people to be like everyone on the same level, and then you also need democracy, because you cannot have like elite rule, because this is like not equal. You need to give everyone the same voice, because it's unfair to give some people more voice. With the exception of children though, like children don't really have a voice in like left-wing politics at all. I think this is also a natural consequence of the democracy, because only adults have a vote, so nobody cares about what children want. So, but when you have this notion of like egalitarianism, which is like if you start assuming egalitarianism and like especially like equal outcomes, then you get all these insane left-wing policies from it naturally without like assuming anything. But they don't really, and this is also why they push for equity. They call it equity, which is like equal outcomes. This is fairly easy to debunk though, but like a lot of left-wingers don't want to say it to you. they like it, try to dance around it. Like if you look at what people like Vars and Destin do, is they don't really make clear what they even believe in. Like
Yeah,
Vars,
they're always on the offense, and they gish gallop like crazy. Yeah.
yeah, they do several strategies. Like Vars is actually good at rhetoric, to his credit. Is it like but his like ideology doesn't work at all. Like officially, it's like libertarian socialism, which is like an oxymoron in the first place. But it's like you do this worker co-op thing, and you don't even need any data to debunk it. You can just explain it that you actually don't want to be like in a worker co-op as a worker because you're not flexible. Then you want to be able to like easily change where you work. But if you are like in a worker co-op and you, let's say you work a lot for this corporation.
Oh, you're muted.
Then when you no longer work, when you try to leave, you get nothing for all you worked for because you don't have real ownership over over the company. So this is like a super bad form of company structure. But this like dumb left, they don't even understand basic economics or like how you build wealth. They don't understand like why this is a bad idea. This is also a way to like if you want to like attack worker co-op, you can attack people who say that you don't get proper ownership because you cannot just leave and take your stake and sell it for money. If you leave the worker co-op, you get nothing for all the work you're putting building it up. This is a terrible business idea that arguably shouldn't even be legal because it's bad for workers.
Yeah, well, you could solve that by allowing workers to be paid in stock, and they don't have to pay taxes on the stock like the CEOs don't have to pay taxes. But anyway, I guess what I'm saying is, okay, so you're saying that the foundation of feminism is egalitarianism.
No, I would
and
say that the foundation of left in politics is like the equity thing. The foundation of feminists is gender equity and female oppression, and you have to accept both. This is like the official narrative. So you cannot. So if you say that females are privileged, you are a misogynist because it implies that you should treat females worse because everyone is like egalitarian according to them. Like they cannot even conceive of someone not being like a gender egalitarian. But the thing is, we have this black pill, the like female supremacists too, that are like you don't even care about the stuff at all, and they can say that females are privileged and still like prefer for females and stuff. And these females are kind of based on actual entertainment and fun to listen to. We had someone like that, and this was a cis female on Reddit, trans-abled social justice warrior. And she was writing that as a female you get way less punishment if you get caught having sex with a minor. And she wrote it on transmaxxing and she was this female. And that turf really got mad about that and didn't realize it was a cis female, that was a tranny chaser. At least unless she's making up, but I got the impression that she was like a real cis female. And she said that as a chaser, homosexuality is the most oppressed of them all.
So you think that there's never going to be a competing ideology to feminism? You're just going to end up with like social collapse because feminism's never going away, right?
It's not going away like anytime soon. Like the only way to crush feminism is that you need to have authoritarianism, and unless you cannot like vote your way out of feminism, you need to like do a coup or something and then just be really brutal. So you need to go full authoritarian. You cannot be like Republicans, which are like the biggest feminists of them all. They will never do something like that. Or even Trump.
Okay, so the ideology, I guess the point is that the ideologies don't even matter. It's just like you have a political situation where the ideology can arise, the ideology will arise, and so you're never going to end up in a situation like it's almost like it's going to run to its logical conclusion, I guess is what we're saying. Like politically speaking, whatever the logical conclusion may be, it's just going to run to that conclusion, and that you'll have some competing society with some competing ideology. Maybe it could be like Islamism or something like that, whatever.
I mean, I think what might be finally like destroying it now is the trans stuff, because you have all these like trans females who are like feminists, and they don't realize that they're kind of destroying feminism now, because either they need to like attack and go to war against all the trans community, or which is the only like strong force like opposing feminists right now without knowing it. They are actually like combating it, which is also part of the reason why I wrote Transmaxxing Manifesto, because this is the way to crush feminism once and for all. Because now we have this people trying to push for trans inclusivity, then everyone wants to be like included as a female. It's like defeat the entire ideology, because if you can just identify as a female, then everything is pointless. You can just identify as a female, then get diversity higher than a way. You can identify as female, you get like all this privilege, at least the legal stuff, so you can force legal equality that way. You cannot.
Yeah, you know that TFM is legally female, right?
I heard about he was like a transgender, masculine presenting lesbian.
Yes, he's a masculine presenting transgender lesbian. Yes, legally, yes, he is. And he's actually used it, like he's been in situations where like some SJW feminist that he worked with was like, you know, pulling all these power moves and trying to get him like disciplined and fired and stuff. And he would just like, he would either like pull out his driver's license and like put it in her face, or he would like go to HR and say, well, I'm a woman and you can't treat me like this. And he said like it's like a fucking magic wand, and it literally works. And he's just a guy, like he's not trans.
Yeah, this is also something I should probably promote hard. The thing is also, and this is very important to realize, is that I don't actually believe that you become a woman just identify as one. I think this is nonsense. But I actually mentioned it in the Transmaxxing Manifesto that when they have this legal bullshit, it's actually a good thing, because then you can get it's a way to combat like legal discrimination and stuff, so it might be like beneficial, but it's not ideal also. I point out that this is not like the ideal solution to these problems, but
yeah, it's niche. It's that solution is for men who are in particular industries where they're being discriminated against, like and especially like corporations with HR departments that have to follow like you know, these like really strong guidelines, like for example, you know, you have to have 20% of the C-suite has to be diverse or whatever. And so like if you can just check a diversity box, you can keep your job in the C-suite, and they don't give a shit. They're just like, well, you know, you're legally female, so you know that, you know, it's because they're having some kind of diversity forced upon them. And so if they're experiencing external pressure, but they're not like true believers, you can get away with it like pretty easily.
yeah,
If they're turfs, you know, it's different.
what you have to realize here, and this is very important too, is that this works in some limited circumstances. It does not work when you don't have legal discrimination. You can, for example, a lot of laws are already gender neutral in paper, but then females still get better treatment because it's the discretion of the judge. So if, for example, let's say you have like, you don't have the same laws on paper, but then in practice like everyone will nicer to the women, then it doesn't work that you're legally female because you got the like legally female treatment, which is the same as the legally male treatment, which is still worse because they treat you as if you were a male in a way. So you like so you're sure you can identify as one, but they don't still like don't give you any real privileges from that. So you have to be careful with that. You cannot always like get away with pushing too hard, because it only works when if it is like legal sex, it works. If it is based on like anything else, like if CFM will pull that like people must be taken seriously, like and try to be like the high for some public, because it wouldn't work because people will find it ridiculous, and people will so it will so then maybe if he was like taking estrogen or something and will cross-dress, maybe then it will work better. So you're like you cannot always get away between as little as just the legal stuff. So
well, okay, well, think about it. If he's in a position to bring a big lawsuit, so like if he's willing to show up to court cross-dressed and say like I was discriminated against because of my gender identity, And if he's willing to go through with it and get like a multi-million-dollar lawsuit, like let's say he's like in California and he can like really, and he's got a big corporation with deep pockets that's good for the lawsuit, and he's like, let's say he's set up a kind of paper trail to where he's holding that leverage, kind of like in American Beauty, when he's trying to like leverage a severance package out of his employer, and he like punches himself in the face or whatever, or he's got some kind of a leverage. If you're willing to go to that lengths in a kind of like backstabbing Machiavellian corporate environment, it'll work. But like you really have to be dedicated to it. And for him, like it's just a matter of going to HR and saying like, here's my driver's license, and then using it as a shield. And yeah, like you said, it could work, or it could backfire. Yeah, actually TFM said that he's never had anybody contact him and say that they had a negative experience doing that. He said if you legally change your driver's license and your government paperwork, he said if you legally change it, their ideology is that it's like you were saying earlier, that it's all about identity. And so if you just change your legal documents and say that you identify that way, that in terms of the way corporations function, that they respect, like it does work as like a kind of armor, as it were. He said he's never had anybody contact him saying that it backfired or there was anything negative. And a lot of the guys that listen to him have actually gone through with it. Like a whole lot of them have gone through with it.
Yeah,
So,
I think this is actually a good advice, to be honest. You have to
yeah.
be mindful of the limitation, is that it doesn't work. Let's say you do a crime, they are not going to like give a linear punishment because you have like a lesbian presenting transgender lesbian. Like, no, it's not going to work because it's like the same legal stuff. There's not a legal difference, so they're going to look to say that. So if there is like discretion of an individual, it doesn't work because they can just say that okay, we don't discriminate against you, we like recognize that you are like a female, but you have violated the law, and then you get the length to your sentence anyway because it's the
when it comes to military or police, they go by your birth certificate. So like if you're going to prison or you're getting drafted to go to war, all they care about is your birth certificate. They don't give two shits about your driver's license. Just that's the way it is. Like, because Joe Biden clearly said it, for the purposes of the draft, they're going to look at your birth certificate. So like it doesn't fucking matter if you're some like 18-year-old, 100 pounds soaking wet, you've been on HRT since you were 12 years old, like no muscle mass, whatever. They're going to fucking draft you because of your birth certificate. That's the way they look at it. So
what happens when you get to the conscription and they just see you like not having any muscles and actually being able to run?
Yeah, they can place you somewhere else, maybe if they really want to fuck you, but like they have done that a lot with males that are like physically weak. They just place them somewhere, and they don't like there are a lot of, they can place you to do something pointless just to like fuck you over.
yeah, they'll put you in a support role. They'll put you behind a computer flying drones or something. They'll figure something out.
Yeah.
But they'll still draft you. They won't draft
right.
the women. They will draft the men though.
That's nice. Being a tranny drone navigator, that would be perfect. Perfect job for me. Sign me up.
Any drone pilot.
Yes, actually,
No, but
like if you want to enter the military professional, it might be fine actually. To like there are jobs you can do as a trans female, probably like flying drones and bombing people to death. It's kind of based actually. Like as long as you're like prepared for the PTSD risk and stuff. Like you need to be like a psychopath for that to work for you. Like if you're like a normal person, it doesn't work. You need to be, if you're like fine with killing people, it's a good career choice, I think. Like,
yeah, I guess okay. I need to let me see. I need to snip the conversation a little bit shorter. So I guess the last thing, did you have any thoughts about the maxing side of the transmaxxing equation, or like, or are you just still kind of in the political camp, like where it's like, well, this is kind of a political, because like I'm more focused on the cope side of things, like I really am kind of like individualistic, where I'm like, well, you know what? I know you're politically focused, but I'm like, I don't give a shit about the politics. I don't have a legacy. I'm probably never going to have kids. And so like, the thing that interests me about these conversations, like the two things that we talked about today that like fucking blew my mind, was like your insight into female sexuality, which I think you have a unique lens to be able to see that nobody else in society can see. And I think you're probably like dead on with that. And then the other thing that blew my mind was that idea that taking the pink pill it's kind of like a cope eraser. It erases the need to cope because it makes them like content in life. And that's an angle that I never got from reading like the Transmaxxing Manifesto. But I guess so. Like for a guy, like if you're just some guy out there who's going through life experiencing desperation, right? You're just going to be focused on your copes, right? Like I'm just all I'm going to be doing is running around focusing on my copes. But like, I guess somebody who transmaxes, there's not so much of a maxing going on for them because transing is the maxing. Would you agree with that the transing itself is the maxing because it like brings about that contentment, right?
I think what's important to realize is also that there are like people have different values in life. There are some people who just want to like have sex, like do the Coomer lifestyle, like degenerate max, like hedonistic stuff. And these are the otherwise if they want for the trans stuff, they would like take drugs or like maybe commit suicide. And like if you have someone who if it wasn't for transmaxing would like kill himself or like die of a drug overdose. Like then why shouldn't they transition? Like they have nothing to lose at all. So sure,
Yeah.
you can maybe say like sure it may be if you want children in the future it might not be ideal. You can say maybe that, or you should like self-improve and stuff. Like not everyone wants to self-improve. This is the thing. Like you're trying to force your way upon others. You want to force people to like improve themselves. Not everyone wants to like do all these things.
How do you define self-improvement? So like in your mind.
Like what I was thinking about more was that make yourself attractive and successful in life. This is maybe not exactly the same thing as self-improvement. I just use the word because this is what people say. But they say self-improvement, I mean like you're going to like do what females want out of you. Or like you're going to like, conform to like the female demands.
Well, so what's your position on self-improvement? Like, what point are you trying to make about it? Like, are you neutral on it, or like I'm not understanding? Like,
you either have to be. There are several ways to get females. Like you can either like attract them voluntarily, or you can force them. And like a feminist society, you need to do what the females desire to like attract them. So if they want to have like a six-pack, you like rub a six-pack. If you need, you like inject steroids or whatever. I don't really advocate for it, but if you let's say that's you need you, then you have to do that because otherwise you get rejected. So males are pushed into like all these things to like attract females, and then they're going to be this males that feel like they're not going to do all the things, going to like inject my female hormones and be happy. And like the thing is also that as a male you have no interest in like other males actually self-improving because it's not in your biological interest. They are your competitors, so you actually want them to like do the female hormones and be happy and not compete against you. That will also be by like females are the one being like most upset about like a female that was like real upset about transpaxing, and she said that, oh no, I find nerdy guys cute and I don't want to lose, blah blah blah. The thing is also that the transmaxxing manifesto doesn't even mention anything about nerds in the first place. I don't think the word is even used. But this is like she projecting and thinking that this is what like I mean.
Are you saying that like let's say that you have a young transitioner, right? are you saying that they don't really have to focus on self-improvement because they're like a young, conventionally attractive female, and so they don't really have to improve themselves at all because they're female passing or whatever, and that so that if they were a guy, they would have to go through all this self-improvement to be competitive, but as a conventionally attractive passing female, they don't. Is that what you're trying to say, or am I misunderstanding you?
That's a part of it. Like sure, like you might be able to like personality max and have more success dating as a trans female. Like I understand being that a lot dealing with people that will help even as a trans female. But the difference is that you're not forced into it. This is the difference. Like as much you are forced to become like more attractive because you don't have power over female. Like if you want to get a female, you need to like either like own someone as property, which isn't possible in like today's society. You like cannot own female as a property. This is not legal.
Do you think that how do I try to say this? Do you think that we were talking about like this sexuality stuff earlier? Do you think that trans women are going to be like most attracted to dominant men, and that like I'm trying to figure out how to frame this question. I forgot what I was going to fucking say. I'm running out of brain fuel. It's getting close to my bedtime. But anyway, yeah, I'm running out of questions to ask and things to say. My brain is shutting down. Did you have anything like last words before I hit the road?
I can go into your question anyway. Like, are they attracted to dominant males? From my anecdotal observation, it seems that when trans females are like pseudo androphilic, they are like only interested in like dominant males, nothing else. So this is the pseudo androphilia thing again. When you are not attracted to males in general, you are just attracted to specific things that males can provide, like the physical aspect and the humiliation aspect and domination aspect that males can provide. You want that, but you're not like you don't like males in general really. Just more like certain things that males can do for you sexually.
Yeah, I think you should. I think you should come up with some. I think you should coin terminology in that area because, like, pseudoandrophilia. Maybe that is the accurate term. I'm not sure, but like the way I view it in terms of psychosexuality, the way I view that is that female sexuality is on the DS spectrum. I guess human sexuality is on the DS spectrum, and that like a trans female, if they're on the submissive side of the spectrum, they're on the female side. Because I suppose somebody could transition without being on this, like an AMAB could transition without being on the submissive side of the sexual spectrum, right? It's possible. But I would strongly suspect that the vast majority of them are going to they're going to slide down that scale. And then I think sexologists have kind of missed out on the fact that most of human sexuality it really does come in on a DS spectrum. Like it's tied into gender, it's tied into psychosexuality. It's like hardwired in there, and that that like we've put up all these bullshit fronts like, oh no, men are attracted to body parts and they just and it's like no, men get off on being dominant and women get off on being submissive, and that like because of feminism, because of society, like we talked about earlier, because of all of that shit, nobody can publicly exist in harmony with their psychosexual nature. But I think that there is, because I don't like the word pseudoandrophilia because it kind of gets muddied all of this autogynephilic discussion, because that's a whole other can of fucking worms. Like getting into the autogynephilia, the way I've seen people talk about that on the server, they don't understand it, or they're using a really like bad like cognitive structure to think about it, and it really muddies any discussion. So I think not that I'm pushing you to develop new like I think a different term would make it more clear about what you're specifically referring to, and I think there's utility in it.
Pseudoandrophilia is not the same as wanting to be submissive. Pseudoandrophilia refers specifically for that because you like these certain aspects males can do for you, like being humiliated and like fucked in the ass and and have your moon and stuff, and like sucking his cock and swallowing his semen, all the stuff that is like typical. Because of that, you find yourself attracted to these males, to certain males for that purpose.
Yeah,
But,
I will. If I think about some etymology, it'll probably just pop into my brain because I have a background in like root languages and stuff like that. So I would look into the root words. Like, did you see when I said I was talking about the difference between like womanhood and womanity? Did you see that?
I did not, but
I think it's in shit posting, or no, it's either in shit posting or NSFW. But somebody was talking about like womanhood and like how, oh no, you're not a true trans and so you don't possess womanhood or something like that. Only true trans women possess womanhood. And then I was saying the reason why you're saying that is because you want to belong to a female collective, like womanhood. That's like neighborhood, right? A neighborhood is just a collection of neighbors, and womanhood is just a social collection of women. And so like what you're trying to do is when you're trying to achieve womanhood, is you're trying to achieve social acceptance with cis females and feminists. And I was talking, and I said what transmaxers are trying to achieve is womanity, which is like the psychological and biological state of being a woman. And they're not fucking interested in joining your feminist collective or your true trans, because I think the true transsexuals they genuinely feel that they're a part of womanhood, like the sisterhood or whatever. And I think that was part of a lot of the brainwashing that went on, in the early 90s with all of that bullshit baggage that they have. And then they come on the server and then I try to say, look, you have a bunch of fucking baggage from pseudoscience that was around 30 years ago. But anyway, again, that's a root language thing, the difference between womanhood and womanity. Like womanity would be like humanity. Like it would be like the essence of being human or the essence of being woman. Because that's what I see in a lot of transmaxers is like some kind of female essence or female spirit or female soul, or you could just call it femininity or passing. I don't know what you would fucking call it. But I think like transmaxers, they possess some quality that makes them not passable is not the term, but it womanity. They possess womanity, and they're not interested in quote unquote womanhood. They're not interested in social acceptance. Does that make sense? What I'm trying to tell you?
Yeah, I actually saw Destiny talk about that in his, like, he was doing all this transmit coop that, like, if you accept the true strength, you can say you are a woman because you have this thing in my brain that makes me a woman. This is total bullshit, by the way, but this is a way to get around that. You can, like, include trans females without, like, having, like, any demands. And there is a very simple way to get around this, say that, oh, you're not going to include a woman for this specific thing. And the very simple solution is that you look at the body as a whole instead of like trying to focus just on one detailed part of your body. Like sure, if you want, you can say that if you have like breasts, you're a woman, but this doesn't make sense either. But if you look at the body as a whole, you say that overall is just like a female body, overall is more like a female body, because if you sum up the parts, like, and this is like how we do with a lot of things when you classify something that you cannot have, you don't have this simple trait that just tells you have to look at the many traits, and then you have then you end up somewhere in this bimodal distribution. And this is
that's my academic background, by the way. What you were just talking about. I think the thing that gets left out is everybody focuses. This is what black pillars do as well. I think what they leave out is there's a focus on physical appearance, but the other aspect that nobody really talks about is I would call it animation. So it's the appearance over time. So it has to that part of it could be the voice, it could be mannerisms, just posture. So there's all these aspects to the way that women are animated, to the way that they move, to the way that they speak. You could call it, maybe you could just call it behavior, right? But there's all these aspects that I think trans women don't focus on, and they don't even think about it because their medical doctor doesn't bring it up and doesn't have a prescription pill they can swallow for it. But like all of that learned behavior that sort of pushes women to that end of the bimodal distribution, I think a lot of trans women leave that out. They focus on the physical, they focus on the hair and the dress and the appearance, and so like they'll like it, when you look at a picture of them, you'll be like, oh well, that's like a beautiful woman, and then like when you see a video of them talking or you see them in person, you're like, oh, that's a dude. That's a very beautiful feminine dude, but like it's their behavior that clocks them, and they don't for some reason they don't understand that, and
Yeah,
so like
I think the big
yeah.
issue here is that a lot of trans females are like into the gender critical culture, so they don't believe in this that you should behave in a certain way as a woman because they believe in feminism, which they say you don't have to, that you should be able to do what you want. You have heard all this brainwashing yourself, so they don't
Yeah,
think it matters.
yeah, and the reason it doesn't work is because the cis females are starting from the cis female side of the spectrum, and they're masculinizing, but there's something essentially female about it. And then the trans women are starting from the masculine side, and they're doing like a parody of femininity, and so like they just come off like, yeah, they may look convincing in a picture, but like in like when you see them talk, I guess like did you ever see, I don't know, there's like the trans women that accosted Jordan Peterson in his first public appearance, and like they have to me, I just read them as like a guy on hormones with long hair. That's the way like I see those types of those trans women. And I don't, but that's, see, in my mind, I don't read that as female. I'm like, okay, well, you're a guy and you have like long, beautiful hair, and you're wearing women's clothing, and you're apparently on hormones, and you've got breasts, but you're like, you know, your behavior, like you behave, you act like a man. So like, I just read you as a man. Like that's how I read the ones that were attacking him. Like you can go back and watch that original viral video. You can see what I'm talking about. But that's like an example. But a lot of times people like that are gendered as female because of what you were talking about, like the ideology. They're gendered as female, and everybody like plays along with their act or whatever. But they like never, I don't know, they never genuinely. I don't know. I don't have the language to describe it, but they don't behave like as a cis female would. And then sometimes you'll see like trans women who like have the feminine behavior, the feminine voice, and maybe they have like masculine bone structure. And it's like, I think when you're talking about passability, specifically, I think the behavior is probably overlooked as like a factor. You know, like show a picture of yourself. Oh, you know, oh, you passed perfectly, but you can't tell from a picture, right? You would have to like interact with the person. But anyway,
it really depends, because you have some people who actually went through male socialization till the mid-20s, let's say, and it's really hard for them to learn how to behave like a woman. And you end up on Discord servers with people telling you, yeah, I would spend essentially 2 days, 3 days acting like a girl, but it's essentially an act. It's really hard for them to relearn everything. The way they walk, the way they move their arms when they walk too. It's really spooky when you think about it. Yeah.
Yeah, it is. Yeah. Yeah, and that spirit, like that's why I say like female spirit, because there's some like quality of animation, right? There's some like I don't know, they call it psychokinetic energy in Ghostbusters. Like there's some essential animating energy, and so for some people that's just going to be naturally, like they're going to transition, and then like they're just going to snap their fingers and it's going to happen. And there's going to be some people who just never pick it up at all, you know? And so I think that's probably like, I don't know how much of that, I mean, I guess you don't really care about that self-improvement aspect of it, but like, that would be the main thing that I would like, if I were like a gender counselor or something, I would say like, before you do anything, you're going to have to like learn how women move, and you're going to have to learn how they talk and how they think, and you're going to have to like reinvent yourself internally first, because all of the external shit is not going to like changing your external appearance is not going to make you a woman. Like you have to like.
I mean, that's why I think there's a lot of people who end up rapping till the mid-20s or even more, because they go through the day feeling and acting like a dude, but because of some obscure reasons, let's say when things become more private, and that's when they essentially feel more feminine, citing AGP, and they essentially learn how to behave like a dude day to day. And it's hard to relearn everything. Like them learning how to speak like a chick. Yeah, cool. They will watch videos and stuff like this, but you still spend 20 plus years behaving like a dude, and like you can't expect to behave like a chick from one day to another one. It will take you years. Like if you're really into transition, sure, you will end up behaving like a chick, but it's no one said transition is easy, man.
Okay, so that would actually be a good argument against what I was saying about ready, fire, aim. In a kind of like they don't need to drag out the social transition. They should just dive into the social transition, and then because he's what Orange is saying is that they should go full time as fast as humanly possible, so that they can retrain their muscle memory to be female instead of male.
That does make some sense, at least. I will have to think more about this, because when you the thing is also that if you're going to like social as a female, and if you don't pass, the people are not going to treat you like as a female anyway, so it might not be that good of a training in the first place. This might be a case against that, but I think a good idea is that you want to do like an early social transition, but not right away. You want to wait first. You want to see that, okay, I like the effects from the hormones, and you might want to wait until you get some breast growth or whatever, so you get like an easier time passing, and then you can like try like talking like a female. You can like training your voice and stuff. And then when you have like a female voice, which might actually be the limiting factor, when you have this feminine voice, you can like talk sounding like a sounding like a female, then you become like hardcore social transition, and like even if you don't pass fully, it might be the best approach.
Well, because like whenever you're training muscle memory, because I also have a background in sports psychology, so like when someone learns a bad habit in a sport, like if you're learning some kind of a sports fundamental, like swinging a golf club or dribbling a basketball, like if you build up a lot of muscle memory, and it's been set for a long time, and you've just been playing with bad fundamentals, like it's really really difficult. And just think about transition in terms of like, think of it like a sport, right? So you're used to playing the sport of life as a male, and then you have to like unlearn all of that hardwired muscle memory, and then relearn how to physically use your body, like as if as female or whatever. And so like that's in a sense that's like excruciatingly difficult, and like that might be the part that is kind of like not even understood. I don't think establishment medical psychologists understand that. I don't think all the culture warriors that are like doing trans activism, I don't think they understand how critical that is. And I don't even think a lot of maybe even people in these circles, like transmaxxing, like adjacent spheres, I don't even think I think that's probably the part of transition that like very few people probably even get. Is how muscle memory works. You would have to be like a very technical psychologist, probably in sports psychology, to even understand some of the mechanics of that. And so like I I think that's probably the part where, you know, like I said, everyone's focusing on their physical appearance and taking good selfies and like
Yeah,
looking female on social media. But
there
like,
is one thing also to consider is that often the goal with passing is that when people like are in the street or like shopping stuff up there, they want to like be viewed as a female, not as trans. And these cases, like people not going to pay too much attention to your behavior. You don't even need to talk most of the time, or if at all. So it's like the appearance is more important because this is like the main thing that people see from them.
no, I think I actually hold on. I actually disagree with that. I think that they subconsciously pick up on these movements, and so what it's going to do is it's going to ring like an alarm bell. They're going to be like, "Why is that woman walking like a dude?" It's gonna draw scrutiny. So I think part of the issue with them not potentially passing is that you know, if they have these like giveaway male mannerisms, if they have too many of them or they're too salient, what ends up happening is they get scrutinized, and then it's through that scrutiny that they get clocked, right? And it's like the person looks at them and they're like, wait a minute, I was ignoring you till I saw that you were walking like a dude, and then I looked at you and you're walking like a dude and you have a male brow bone. Oh, okay, you're a guy that looks like a girl. Like that's when you get clocked. I'm kind of agreeing with what you're saying, that people don't pay attention to you, but if they initially read you as female and then you give away some like behavior, that's going to draw scrutiny, and it's going to cause what it's going to do in the person. It's going to cause them to shift from a very subconscious automatic classification of you where they're kind of ignoring you. They're going to switch from that to a very conscious, intentional, they're going to pay attention to you, they're going to become aware of you, and when they do that, a more conscious categorization is going to happen for you. And that's the when people are getting quote unquote clocked, that's what's going on in terms of cognitive processes. Anyway, okay. Any other words? I gotta peace out. I gotta go.
Yeah,
Anything
I
else?
think you might have a point there. I think so many people just assume that you can behave how you want as a female. You don't need to care about gender roles or anything like that. It's like the so prevailing dogma that it's just because overlooked, like even by me, because even I kind of like assume that. Like I think that you just need to look like a female and whatever. But as you put it now, that these things might actually matter more than we have realized.
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah. If you're walking around, again, it's not an all. You've got the idea down of how these classification systems work. You've got the basic idea. You know, it's just that the muscle memory thing. You know, that I think that's the thing that nobody ever talks about. That you know, in the context of transition, like nobody ever says, "Oh yeah, and by the way, part of your transition is that you're going to have to relearn how to use your physical body, like from top to bottom, and like, and then if you became attenuated to it, like, this is one thing that makes me different from most people is because of my academic background. I become consciously aware of a lot of things that people are only subconsciously aware of. So like I will look at the way that women move and I'll be like, oh, like I see that. Like I consciously am aware of their motor programs. I'm like, oh look, they hold their, like I see the way they hold their hands, I see the way they express, you know, facial expressions and shit like that. And like men and women are from different planets. If you didn't, I mean, a lot of people don't understand that, but they're completely different creatures in terms of their motor programs. Like there's virtually no overlap between their motor programs. The physical posture, the way they use their hands, especially women talk with their hands in all these crazy ways. Like it, once you become like highly, I guess I could even make like a fucking YouTube channel about that, like saying like, look, like let me show you this, let me show you that, like people watching type stuff. But I don't know. Anyway, okay. Anything else? I need to head out.
Yeah, I think we had a great conversation. I think I will end the recording right now. And